Hey, welcome folks. You'll have to excuse me, I'm just adjusting some audio properties. My microphone is aiming to misbehave. Welcome, Chris. Okay. How's my audio? My microphone is behaving strangely tonight, so sounds good. Okay, let me know. I'm gonna trust you guys on that. And hey, welcome, Kyle Archer. Good to see you. But as far as audio goes, if you start hearing background noise or any interference or something weird, just call it out and I'll try to fix it. Because, like I said, my microphone is not cooperating tonight. So if something weird pops up in the audio, just let me know. And hopefully the colors on my screen should be better tonight and things should be more readable. I've turned off HDR on my main monitor, so hopefully that makes things look better on the stream. Because it looks great on my screen, but on the stream it makes things washed out. So, yeah, made a few adjustments. Did everybody have a good day today? Anybody do anything cool? Hey, welcome, Raccoon. Good to see ya. You made it, indeed. Hey, Rascal. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Rascal Raid, indeed. What were y'all working on today? Anything cool? Hey, Fedecha, welcome. Yeah, the Star Trek API was super fun. All right, we're gonna get started here in about a minute. As folks trickle in here. Hey, Kristen, welcome. Oh, that's right. You're gonna do the Code Wars leaderboard tonight. That's awesome. That's a lot of JSON, Rascal. Hey, AJ Hollowell, Twitchin', welcome. We got a lot of first timers tonight. That's awesome. Good to see you. Out of curiosity, for the first timers, what brought y'all here tonight? I mean, yeah, I love having you. I'm just curious. Were you interested in the topic? All right. Well, it looks like it is time to get started. Welcome, Chase. So let's dig into it. I'm going to get my scene switched over here. All right. How we doing? Hello. Good to see everybody tonight. Saw me online. All right, PKUs. That's great. Yeah, so tonight we're doing something I hope everybody here will find really useful. What we're going to do is we're just going to kind of take everything back to basics a little bit. I know for the last few streams we've been doing some pretty cool projects, at least in my opinion. We've been doing some pretty cool full stack based projects that sort of play with various aspects of either MongoDB or server or EJS, and really kind of pushing those a little bit in various directions to see what we can do and what we can do with this newfound power. But tonight we're going to walk things back a little bit because I feel like a lot of folks are doing amazing things with the stuff that we've been building, the projects that we've been building. But I also see some folks that are struggling to, kind of get started, right? Get started with building something that's truly full stack from the ground up. How do I get started? What steps do I follow? What steps am I missing? Why am I getting this error? Why can't I get connected to MongoDB? Like those types of things. And those are, legitimate problems. And so I feel like we're just going to kind of strip things down, take things back to basics and follow a simple set of instructions to build a full stack app that really doesn't do anything, but it has the skeleton of everything that you need to build your own personal app on top of this. So that's what we're going to try to do tonight. We'll see how successful it is, but it's something I felt like I wanted to try. So we're going to give it a go. We're going to see how it goes. And, I have some ideas for the instructions that we're going to follow, but we can change them as we go. That's the cool thing about being live. All right. Hey, KT, I'm going to catch up with chat here, and then we'll get started. I'm glad you loved the last VOD, Cal Archer. That's awesome. Lost in the sauce with the back end. Yeah, and that's what I feel like before we get too deep into like fun stuff, like fun, like our awesome autocomplete search that we did last time. And, all these various like ways we can push the envelope with the things that we're building. I felt like it would be good to go back and kind of just establish the basics again. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And Kristen, yes, this VOD will be on YouTube. I try to push videos like once a week, but like leaving a week gap. So yeah, this one should be on YouTube. Not at the end of this week, but end of next week. I'll push it over. That's when I usually do it. Why can't I think of anything for the 100 Hours Project? Yeah, it's kind of hard, isn't it? It's hard to think of a topic sometime. Yeah, can't do any of the cool stuff unless the basics are working. Exactly, Rascal. And that's what we're going to try to go for tonight. Yep. Oh, Catch Up Crew. Yeah, I love the Catch Up Crew. I don't often post, but I do lurk in the Catch Up Crew channel quite a bit, and I try to answer little questions here and there, and kind of just gauge where people are at. So, hey, welcome, Jim. Okay, so you can see what I have on my screen here. This is just and this is an app that I pushed to Heroku. So you can see, if you can see the URL, it's probably pretty small for you. But you can see it's deployed on Heroku, and we're delivering some HTML. But what you can't see is that this is actually an EJS file. And it's also connected to a Mongo database. It's not displaying anything from that database right now. We're not even going to do that. We're just going to get our connection. We're building the bare bones. We're building the scaffold tonight. But this is a full app, right? We've got EJS. We've got a server file powering it and powering this connection. We've got a connection to MongoDB here. We got everything that we need. So, and then what you can do is, I'll have this up on GitHub. You can take it, you can fork it, you can clone it, whatever you want to do, you can use it, and you can build your own stuff, and then you can tag me on Twitter whatever you do build. So !Twitter, just tag me with the cool stuff that you build after tonight. All right. Hey, Julian. Yeah, catch that VOD. That's right. Gavintor, welcome. Hey, Triz. Yay, live, indeed. All right. So, let's start by, I'm just gonna pull up basically an empty VS Code window here. And what I've kind of put together here is a set of simple instructions, and we're going to be following these as we go tonight. So don't need to, copy them or anything. We're going to, this is all going to be up on GitHub. We're going to go step by step, and it's basically 10 steps to deploying, to creating the skeleton and then deploying a full stack application. So I tried to keep it down to 10, keep it simple, but we're going to be, walking through each of these as we go. Now, I did mention in my announcement on the Discord that in order to follow along tonight, you're really going to need a Mongo database account and at least one database. It doesn't matter what's in it. Really, we're just going to be using it to make sure that we can connect to Mongo. So you need at least one Mongo database in order to establish your connection. and kind of set up some variables and stuff. So make sure you have that. If you don't, like I said, go back to my video from May 29th. It's 6 hours, but really you're only going to need like the start, kind of the start. And it walks you through step by step how to set up a Mongo account. We're not going to do that tonight. I'm going to assume that, we've had about a month. So I'm going to assume that you do have one. So again, if you don't, feel free to drop off this one, go catch my video from May 29th and, kind of catch up there, get the basics that you need from that. So we're not turning it up to 11. No, we're not Spinal Tap, unfortunately. No. Bloxies. Yeah, so we're actually not going to do too much with EJS tonight. I'm going to show you how to set up the file structure for EJS files. If you want to play a little bit with EJS specifically, I would suggest watching so we did a little bit of that in my, I think in my database builder stream from last week. I think we did that. Oh, there is a bird right outside my window, and it's like trying to get under the siding. Oh, Kristen B, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Spend that Bezos money. That bird was right out the window there. Scared the crud out of me. Is it a red bird? I don't think it was a woodpecker. I think it was just, I don't know. It's like scoping. It's like casing the place. It's like trying to break in. I don't know. Weird. Yeah. Bird cam. I would turn the camera around, like take it off and turn it around, but y'all know how unstable my camera is, and so I don't think that would end well. Oh, and I have a poll as well. Hang on. The last thing before I get started, I have a poll for y'all can vote on when the camera will fall today, if it's going to fall. So that's, that's your thing that's your bet to make. I'm going to have a poll. It'll be going. You don't have to vote, but all right. But it's there if you want it. So just click on the poll at the top of chat if you want to vote on how long it'll take for my camera to fall down. You have 10 minutes. All right, so we have some instructions here. And like I say, if any of these instructions, as we go through these, if any of them don't make sense, let me know and we'll maybe revise them a little bit, because we can. I'm not planning on making them super detailed, but they're more of just things to jog your memory. So what do we do first? Well, the first thing, actually, I realized the first thing I should have put in here is that we need to create a server.js file. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to, in our empty VS Code window here, we're going to go ahead and create our server.js file. All right, and then inside of that, we're going to want to initialize NPM and install dependencies. Okay, so how do I initialize NPM? And what is NPM? Exclamation point GitHub for a link to my GitHub. So 2 questions there. What is NPM? What does it do? What does NPM allow us to do? And how do I initialize it? Yeah, right. It's the node package manager, right? And in order to initialize it, we say npm init. Okay, the bird is back. I'm sorry. It's back and it's like pecking at my window. It's freaking me out, man. Now my dog is hearing it. Hang on, I might have to scare the bird away. I'm so sorry. 2 seconds. Yeah, you can hear the bird. I know it was loud. So, all right. So first step is in our server.js, we're going to go ahead and open the terminal. And I'm going to change to git bash. And you don't have to use git bash, but whatever you would normally use for your git commands is what I would suggest using as your terminal host here. So I'm switching to git bash. And so the first thing that we're going to do is do npm init. And that's the only thing that we've talked about. There's nothing, you didn't miss anything. That's the only thing we've talked about so far. It's just npm init. And what this is the node package manager. And it's going to help us install the other things that we can use to make the process of building and deploying our app a little bit easier. So I'm going to do npm init. And it's going to give me some nonsense here on the screen. And I can just basically hit enter until that goes away. All right, there we go. It's bird is joining the stream feed. Yeah, somebody call Rufio. I know. I need Rufio to wrangle the bird for me. Yeah. Yeah, Roach. Yeah, Roach. Yeah. So you can, npm, and when we start installing some dependencies here, that's going to be, we're going to say npm install what have you. Yes. Yep. Yeah, well, Roach, and you can use it. You can use WSL, absolutely. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. We're going to stick with git bash in my case, just because that's what I installed when I installed git. But yeah, WSL can be very useful as well. And you can set bash as your default terminal. Yeah. So, Trizzes, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. All we've done is say npm init in the terminal, and then we just hit enter until it gave us our prompt back. That's all we've done. Hitting enter until it goes away is a mood. Indeed, you can kind of like slam that key a little bit if you're feeling it. Yeah. Okay, so that's all we've done so far. And so now what do we do next? So we said initialize NPM, and the next thing we're going to do is install our dependencies. And we can do that by basically then, now that we've initialized our package manager, we're going to install the various dependencies that we maybe not necessarily need, but it's good to have. So I've put a whole list of dependencies here, and it's not that you're going to need all of these for every project, but it really doesn't hurt to just have them installed and to remember them. So yeah, Jay Halloway, you haven't missed anything at all. Don't worry about it. Yep. So, as somebody said before, what's my general, like, how would I install Express? If I wanted to use the terminal and install Express, how would I do that? I'm going to be asking a lot of questions tonight because we've done several of these builds already, and so I want to kind of, get you thinking and making sure that you're absorbing, the kind of things that we've been talking about. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do npm install express. We could do npm I express. Yes. I'm just going to type it out, but again, that's up to you. npm install express. Yes. All right. And we can see that installs, and then once it does so, we get some node modules up here, and if we were to click into our package.json file, we would start to see dependencies being added in. And so if you don't remember what dependencies you've installed so far, you can click into your package.lock.json and see, oh yeah, I've already installed Express. I don't need to do it again. So, all right, what else do we need? We need .env. I'm going to do each of these individually. I know there's ways to do them all at once, but we're taking things slow tonight. We're keeping it easy breezy beautiful. So this is what we're doing. npm install .env. All right, what does .env do? What does this dependency do? Yell at the terminal. Oh, thank you for the stretch. Yep. Anybody know what .env does? If you don't, that's okay. We'll figure out what it does a little bit later. Crafty Sheep, we're going to push it up to GitHub in just a minute. As soon as we set up our git ignore, we're going to push this up to GitHub and you'll have it. Yeah, it hides your stuff, right? It lets us create some environment variables and kind of hide them away out of our main code. So for example, for a database password, which we don't necessarily want to share with literally everyone when we push it to GitHub, you can hide it in an env file and keep it out of sight and add it to your git ignore if you would like to do so. Yeah, it hides the secret stuff, indeed. Yep. Yep, exactly. Y'all got it. Y'all are on the ball. Okay, next one. npm install cores. Anybody remember what cores helps us do? Josue, the command again is just npm install whatever. So I've got the list of items up here. So express.env, cores, we just did cores. So you can just do npm install and do each one of those. Yeah, we can bypass we can bypass cores error if we can bypass cross origin request blocks that can come up in our browser. It's like, yeah, it sets the cross origin access policy. Yeah. And so if you've ever seen a cores error pop up in the browser when you're trying to use your app, installing cores and then later using cores as middleware will help us bypass that. Yeah, we can access things locally this way. Yeah. Cores is the worst, indeed. Hey, welcome, C. Mikey. Yeah, exactly. All right, next we have MongoDB. npm install MongoDB. What is MongoDB? You don't have to say what the dependency actually does, but what is MongoDB? Yes, we can also just do npm I. Yep, or you can write it out. That's up to you. Yes, MongoDB is our database, right? Yep, that's where we're storing our data. Yeah. Why would we use a database? Why don't we just store our data like inside of a JavaScript file? Like, why don't we just put everything in one file, right? Like, why don't we just have it all in one location? Why do we even care about connecting to a database? It seems like a lot of hassle, right? Yeah, why do we need a database? Oh, y'all are on that poll there. Y'all are optimistic that my camera isn't going to fall down tonight. Okay, poll's over, and y'all voted never. So, I feel like you're putting a lot of faith into the painter's tape that's holding my ring light on top of the camera. So, good luck. Because DB are good at storing and accessing things. Too many lines, hosting, and because I don't have infinite memory. Yeah, we need to get, yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons for using a database. Exactly. Yeah, in the analogy that I like to use, using a database is, so let's pretend that, I'm a delivery person for UPS. So if I just have a few packages, like if I just had to deliver like 2 or 3 things, right? I could probably hold those in my arms and just kind of like walk around and like, hand them out to people, right? I could keep them on me or in a backpack or in a bag, like a mail carrier or something like that. But what happens when I start getting 100 packages or 200, or somebody orders a pool table, like, right? I need something to store when the data starts getting big, when it starts getting big and unwieldy, and complicated. That's when I need an offsite place to store it where I can just go to pull it out only when I need it, so I'm not carrying it around with me all the time. And so databases are fantastic for that. They're the truck. They're like, if I'm a UPS person and I have to deliver 200 packages, I darn well better have a truck to put them in, and I go to the truck and I get the packages only when I need them. So in this analogy, our database is the truck, which safely holds everything and doesn't get tired and can hold complicated or heavy items, while me as the UPS person, now I'm freed up. In this case, I'm the server, and I'm freed up to only fetch things when I need them. So I'm not carrying around them with me all the time. And so there's a lot of reasons to use a database, but that's kind of one of them. And when we're working with smaller sets like of data, that's probably the main reason, is that we just want to get that clutter, that complication out of our JavaScript files and into a place where it can be safely stored away. Yeah. Okay, so MongoDB is installed. Next up is EJS. What does EJS help us do? I'm hydrating and nobody even told me to. Aren't you proud of me? Yeah, templating, right? Yeah. So we can use the EJS to help us basically kind of dynamically generate HTML on the fly based on the data that we're passing it from our server. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. And, you know, EJS, but EJS, the reason we're using it at this moment is EJS is very similar in kind of syntax to JavaScript that we're used to seeing. And so there's a ton of different ways to kind of, you know, dynamically generate this stuff in the DOM, but EJS looks very similar to JavaScript, so that's kind of what we're using for now. Rascal, glancing at my 700 plus JSON files. Nah, this is totally safe and stable. Yeah, Rascal's dragging along, like, you know, dragging along a giant wagon piled high with JSON files. That's awesome, by the way. That's being a rebel developer if I've ever seen one. Okay, yes, so we have EJS, and the last one we're going to install is Nodemon. And before you just go ahead and willy-nilly typing, watch what I type. So we're going to type things slightly differently. We're going to say install Nodemon --save -dev. Okay? Oops, hold on. Nodemon and NPM, sorry. And of course I type it wrong, right? NPM install Nodemon --save -dev. There we go. Yes, okay, and then, so what is Nodemon? What does Nodemon do? Hey, Ruha, welcome. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Hazel, why not install Nodemon globally? So, with the way we're installing these dependencies right now, at least what kind of the philosophy that we're following in class is that we're installing everything on a project by project basis. Of course, it is possible to install a lot of this stuff globally. But at least right at the moment, we're sort of the philosophy that we're following is getting good at installing these and understanding what they do. So we're installing them on every project locally. Yeah, it stops you from manually having to restart the server. Now, why did I do that --save -dev? First of all, let's look what that did. Let's see what that did. If I go to my package.json file, I can see that I have a bunch of dependencies down here now. My cores, .env, EJS, Express, Mongo. And then under here, under dev dependencies, I have this new category called dev dependencies, and Nodemon is there. Why did I do that? Yeah, Dion, yeah, we don't want this. We don't want Nodemon in production. It's not a tool that we use for like the real deal live apps. It's really to help us when we're doing development and we're making a lot of mistakes or making a lot of changes and we have to keep saving and restarting our server. That's just not what happens when an app is in production. When it's in production, it's supposed to be, theoretically, it's supposed to be stable, right? And so we don't want Nodemon in production. Yeah. Yeah, so the security vulnerabilities, don't worry, don't stress about this stuff right now. We might touch on it later. I'm not going to worry about it. It's not causing problems with the way my app runs. I'm not dealing with any sensitive data. Let's focus on the stuff that let's focus on getting the skeleton built together. And then once you're comfortable with that, then maybe you can do some investigation on these types of messages and things, but it's not going to affect the functionality of our app. Worldsworth. So you just tuned in. Welcome, by the way. So we're going to push to GitHub here in a minute, and then you'll have it. Exclamation point GitHub will link you to my GitHub page, and you'll see a repo there for it. I just haven't hooked up to that repo yet. But yeah, well, we haven't pushed to GitHub yet. We will very soon, though. Only need to care when it turns red. Yeah, exactly. It's not red, it's yellow, right? Yellow's just caution. Yellow's not danger, so we're just going to skip it. Indeed. Okay, so where are we at now? We've initialized NPM. We've installed our dependencies. We've done all of these. And I think I'm going to push to GitHub a little sooner than it says in these instructions, but so we'll do we're gonna shuffle things around a little bit. So don't worry, we'll push to GitHub really soon. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to require our dependencies, and we do this in server.js. So when I say require dependencies, what do I mean by that? When I say we're going to start requiring these in server.js, what does that mean? Rascal 2, it's like yellow lights. It means I should hit it and go faster. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Hazel. So what does requiring mean? Well, it means that we essentially need to set them up in our server.js file so that we can access their unique capabilities that come sort of preloaded with each of these dependencies. Yeah, we're gonna require a bunch of stuff in the server file. I wish we could, but no, we can't. So can anybody tell me what I would? I'm not gonna ask you for every single one of these, but what do I need to say for just for Express? What do I need to say if I want to require Express in my server.js? There's 2 lines that I'm going to need. What are they? Does anybody know? Require Express. Yeah, const express, require Express. Exactly. That's the first line. Const express, require Express. And blip, yes. So the second line that we're going to do is we're requiring Express first, and then we're going to set a second variable of app. And I've seen some people use server as their variable as well, but that's up to you what you would like to use. I've seen app and server, but app is most common. So in this case now, once we've set app equal to Express, then we can basically set say like app dot and then an Express method, and have that work just as intended. So we'll be doing that. You'll be doing that quite a bit when you're setting up your full CRUD capabilities. Yeah, require Express and assign to a variable. Exactly, Sullivan. Yep. Okay, and we basically need to do the same thing for the rest of our dependencies. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So next one I'm gonna do is cores, and basically we just say require cores, and also Mongo client. Now Mongo client looks slightly different, but we still need to require it. MongoDB, there we go, MongoDB, and for this one we got to do MongoDB.Mongo client, okay? And that will allow us to use all of the really powerful methods that are associated with Mongo client. Yeah, you wrote it down from the 6-hour class. Exactly. This is sort of, and also too, I forgot to mention, this is sort of meant to be like a really light version of that 6-hour class. So if you don't got time to spend 6 hours learning how to build a CRUD app, this will at least get you started. Yep. Yes, and Seth, that's a great point. So another thing we can do, and we have done in a few of the past videos, is we have also done a little bit of destructuring. So when we're setting up these initial variables here, we might do something like const and then a couple of brackets and do some destructuring in here, and then have the the require on this side. So you can do that as well, but we're keeping things easy breezy beautiful tonight, and so we're not going to do any of that, but that's a good point there. So Triz is, I don't actually have a mod at the moment. So I apologize if I missed one of your questions. I do try to catch as many as I can. Feel free to ask again if I don't catch it the first time. I have auto mod to stop people from, using too many naughty words, but hey, Min, welcome. All right, so we've declared our variables. All right, that's a good start. And you'll notice that we didn't say like require for every single one of the dependencies that we installed. But there's a few of them that aren't necessarily, that aren't sort of declared in this way. They may be middleware instead. And so we'll get to those in a little bit later. But these are the main ones that you need. And the last one we're going to do is our .env file. So this will allow us to set up our .env file where we can store some of that sensitive information that we don't necessarily want to share. So last thing we're going to do is we're going to require .env .config. Now what that'll do is it will allow us to create a .env file and then read data from it in our code. Do we need to change the script in package? Oh, are you talking about for like Nodemon? Yeah, potentially yes, we can. And we might do that once we're ready to test. Yeah. Don't let me forget. If I forget to do that, maybe just remind me, because I don't have that as an actual step in the instructions. But it is, yeah, that's how we can sort of start utilizing Nodemon for testing when we're ready to test. Okay, so we've declared our variables here, and we've also set up .env. So let's go ahead and start pushing this to GitHub so that y'all have this. I mean, there's really not much here, but you can at least have a copy of the instructions. So I'm going to save everything that I have so far. And all right, let's do a quick pop quiz on GitHub. So how do I initialize a Git repository? This is you're probably all rolling your eyes because it's such an easy question. Get in it, indeed. Yeah, we're gonna get in it. Yep, it's gonna, and we've initialized an empty Git repository. Now look here, look at this. So this is my source control in VS Code, and it's showing me how many uncommitted items that I have. Why does it say that I have 2,000 uncommitted items? Why is that? Why is it saying 2K plus? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items here. What's the deal? Why is that? I am a baddie indeed, but why? Why am I a baddie? Yeah, it's the node modules, right? They're massive. Have you ever looked in here? Like, holy cripes, right? So we got to get rid of those. We don't want to send those up to GitHub. That's just useless. Code for dopamine, that's a setting that you can change. And I forget how to do it. I apologize. But yeah, that's a setting you can change to go from master to main, whereas main is the more modern syntax. And I did it, and I don't remember how I did it. I apologize. But I think you can Google it, and it should come right up as an easy change. Why is it green? Yeah. Well, if you look at the little U's here, this shows that I have an active Git repository, but I haven't committed any of these files yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a git ignore file. And that file is going to allow us to put things in it that we don't want to send up to GitHub. So git ignore, I just do .git ignore, and that creates a little file. It's got the little GitHub symbol. You probably can't see that. It's too small. But in there, what I can do is I can just say node modules. That's all I got to do. Now watch this. Okay, eyes up here. So watch me when I save this. Watch what happens. Oh, that went down from 2,000 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, that looks much better, right? That's going to look a lot better when I push this up to GitHub. Okay. So I've done my git init, I've initialized my git repository, I've put my node modules in my git ignore so they get ignored when I push to GitHub. And now it's showing me that I have the right number of items. And I think I've mentioned this last stream too, but if you really wanted to, you could do all of your like pushing up to GitHub from the GUI here in VS Code, but we're going to do it the way we've been taught, which is, directly here in the command line. So I've set up a repository on GitHub. Again, exclamation point GitHub if you want to link to my GitHub page. And I've set up the repository called Full Stack Template here on GitHub. And when you set up a new repository, it gives you all the commands that you need. So I've already done the git init, so I'm going to just copy and paste these. And this is going to help me set my origin and get me ready to push up to GitHub. So I just grab that, everything it told me to grab, except for the git init, which I already did, and I'm going to paste it in. And it's going to set my origin. Let's see what happened here. All right, hang on. Git init, git add, git commit. Oh, I didn't add the files. Yeah. So let's try git add and do that. So there we go. Git add. I don't know that it set my origin properly, but we'll see. Test. Oh, let's do first commit. Sometimes you get errors. It's all good. All right. And let's see. Let's do git push. I bet it'll give me an error. Okay, so I don't have the origin set. That's fine. We're going to do git branch, git remote add origin, and we're going to try this command here because I already had a repo. So we're going to do git remote add origin, git branch -m main, and git push this way. We'll try this. Remote origin already exists. Okay, fine. There we go. That worked that time. So I did things slightly out of order there. So that's why it probably gave me the error the first time, but that's okay because literally when you set up a repository, GitHub gives you all the code that you potentially need. So yes, Hazel, and we will be including our .env file in our git ignore. We haven't quite set it up yet, but we will be doing that. So yes, good catch there. Yep. And so now you should, if you look inside this full stack template repo, you should see the files. So we've got our git ignore, we've got our instructions.txt, and so feel free to click in there and you can, grab these instructions and put them wherever you want. We might be editing these as we go, so I would suggest, maybe not taking them out of GitHub until we're actually done with the demo, but we've got, our package lock, we've got our package and our server.js file. So we'll keep pushing as we go through the demo, but that's a good start, I think. All right, checking I didn't miss anything here. Oh, thank you, Hazel, for sharing that article on how to switch branches from master to main. If your Git console is set to master instead of main, that's a great article to switch. Okay, let's go back to the instructions and we will see what is next. So we've required our dependencies. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to declare some variables that are going to be useful for us. So we're going back to our server.js and we're going to declare some variables that are going to be useful for us as we're setting up a connection to our database, to our MongoDB database. And, kind of just useful, variables are really good for anything that we're going to use over and over again. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to declare some useful variables. All right, so I'm back in my server.js file and make this a little bigger here. There we go. And we're going to declare a few variables. So I'm going to declare DB. And I'm not going to give these values yet. I'm not really going to assign them any values until we actually start establishing our connections. And we can just dump some values straight into these variables. But what would be a reason that I would want to declare variables outside of a function, right? Because I'm going to essentially be connecting to my MongoDB database inside of a function, right? So why am I declaring the variables beforehand, before I even get into the function? So I'm going to declare let DB Next variable is going to be db connection string. Scope, indeed. So scope is a brand of mouthwash here in the United States, but what does scope mean when we're talking about variables in code? What is if I declare a variable globally outside of a function, what does that let me do? Yeah. Scope tells us who can access what. And yeah, so it can be used by all the functions. Yeah, so if we declare a variable globally, which is outside of a function like we're doing now, it lets us use it anywhere, right? Inside of any function. However, if you declare a variable inside of a function, inside of the function brackets, it's not going to let you use it outside of those brackets. Yeah, exactly. Welcome, Ghosts, and welcome, Ghosts, by the way. Welcome. Good to have you here. Taco Fed, yes, we are coding and doing Banky at the same time. I'm sneaky that way. I know. Yeah. Why did I use DB? Well, we will see that in just a minute. So I'm noticing, so my second variable here is DB connection string. And notice that I kind of set it equal to something weird. Well, we'll get to that in just a second after we finish declaring a couple other variables. So my next one is going to be DB name. And I'm going to leave it empty for now. We're going to fill that in just a minute. And the last variable that I'm going to declare is called collection. So really, I'm just kind of setting a couple empty variables, a couple that we're going to set to something. And I'm just kind of setting the stage for what we're going to be using a little bit later on. Yeah. Oh, Quinn Sob, thank you so much for the subscription. Wow, that's awesome. Spend Jeff Bezos' money. Just a tiny fraction of his money. He won't even notice it. It's like the dragon on top of the gold in the cave, and you're coming in and you're taking a little sliver of one gold piece. He won't even see it. Okay, so we've declared some variables, but now what am I doing here? What does this mean? Process.env.db string. What am I doing here when I declare this variable? Oh, thank you, Flip. Oh my goodness. More Bezos bucks. Yes. Thank you. Call to action rewarded. Yeah, we're grabbing the variable from the env file, right? Because this is going to be our connection string, our super secret connection string that's going to allow us to connect to our Mongo database. So process.env.db string is going to pull it out of our environment file, which is going to keep it secret and safe. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we've declared our variables. So if we were looking at our instructions, that was step 3. So look at that. We're already a third of the way done. Go us. So we've declared our variables. And so the next thing we need to do is we need to connect to MongoDB and add our connection string to our .env file. Yes, and Seth, so we're gonna set that connection string up in our env file. And yeah, I suppose it could be a constant. What we've done so far is just kind of set it up as just dbstring.equals. But I see where you're coming from. So you're saying it's safer to do as like const db connection string. Yeah, and with it being in the .env file, I think it's probably pretty safe. But that's a fair point. So yeah, you could make this a constant if you wanted to keep it even safer. Yeah. All right, so, well, it's telling us that we're trying to pull something out of a .env file, right? And so we're going to need a .env file in order to pull stuff out of. So over here on inside of our list of items here, we're going to go ahead and add a new file simply called .env. And when I do that, it creates a little file with a gear icon. And this is where we can hide all of our secret things. Okay? Yeah, it's awesome, Dev Puddle. Yes, and let versus Seth and taxes, you're right. Let versus const have different runtime implications when you're declaring variables. Indeed, yeah, let can be reassigned, const cannot. Exactly. Josue, so we are going to, get into the DB variable thing here in just 1 second. So it's looking for a variable. Our server .js is looking for a variable called DB string inside of our .env file. So I'm going to go ahead and take this DB string variable and I'm going to add it to our .env file and I'm going to set it equal to something. Okay, so what am I even getting here? Well, MongoDB requires a unique connection string, which contains information about the data that we're trying to connect to in MongoDB, as well as our username for our MongoDB database and our password for our MongoDB database. So you can see why that's maybe not something we just want sitting out there in the open. Now, for the types of databases that we're mostly working with, like just projects and practice and that kind of thing, it's not really going to matter. But if you're in a production environment with sensitive data, that's not the kind of thing you want just hanging out there for anybody to see. Yeah, it's a secret sauce, indeed. So where do I get this connection string? Where do I need to go to get my connection string for my database? You can give me a general answer. Do I just make one up? Yeah, Mongo Atlas. Exactly. So we're going to go to Mongo Atlas and I'm going to get my connection string, but you're not going to get to see my password, but you're going to get to see how we get our connection string. So again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm assuming that everybody here already has a MongoDB account with MongoDB Atlas and that you already have at least one database. For this exercise that we're doing tonight, it is not going to matter it does not matter what that database is. It could be anything. It could be the Star Wars thing that we did. It could be the Star Trek API that we did. It could be the movies API that we did. Yeah, the password. Well, the password is visible if you put it in the connection string, but by default, it's not in the string. So it's okay. You're not going to see it. So mongodb.com is where I'm going, and I'm going to sign in, and I'm going to use Google. Boop, boop. All right, and so we can see I'm at the home page now. Yeah, your Raccoon, your password is not going to be in your string, and I'll tell you, I'll if you don't know your password for your database, I'll show you how to reset it, and you can reset it to whatever you need. Definitely get your database passwords and put them like somewhere safe, whether that's in a password manager or I don't know, on a sticky note on your desk or something. You're going to need those passwords every time you connect. So your cluster won't load. Oh no. Well, it seems to be working okay here. I hope you can see this okay. Since I turned off HDR, I hope it's a little clearer on the screen, less blinding. Yeah, you might have to reload a few times. Oh, open it in incognito. Yeah, if it's not working for you, try opening it incognito maybe. Okay, so now from here, what do I do? How do I get that connection string? Okay, good. Safety vest. That looks better. That HDR is just messing things up. It made my face look amazing, but it made my screen look way too bright. So yeah, connect. Exactly. So from my home screen here, I don't need to go in and view my databases. I can just say connect, and I say connect your application. Okay, and from right here, it gives us a lovely full connection string. Now you can see that it does have my username, but the password field is left with, as the word password with carets around it. So you're going to need to replace that with your actual password. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to grab it. So I just did a Control-C there, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to just paste it straight into my .env. And I'll replace that with my password in a minute. But first, what I want to show you is if you don't know your password, you're like, oh crud, was there a password? Yeah, so Jay, it doesn't matter what database you connect to this time around. We're going to test our connection, but we're not really going to do much with it. So you're perfectly welcome to use the same one that we did last time. Yeah. Okay, so, oh crud, I don't know my password. What is my password again? Well, over here on the left, you can go to database access. And you can see here that we have the users who are currently set up for our database. And, you know, generally you'll probably just have one. It'll just be you, and it'll be like an admin role. And so if you don't know the password, you can say edit, and you can say edit password. And from there, it should allow you to generate a new password. And when you do that, just copy the password, and, you know, click save. I think I'm safe to do this if I, yes. And you can even see the, existing password, I believe. So, and you can click show to see it. So you don't have to generate a new one if you don't need to. But yeah, so that's where you can see it. I hope that's the same one as what I've been using. I hope it didn't auto-generate a new one for me. That would suck. But you can also, and when you're done with that, you can just scroll down to the bottom and say update user. And then if you do generate a new password, that'll take a few minutes to kind of percolate through. But either way, you should be able to click show and see the password. So I'm going to cancel out of this because I don't want to change anything. And so, yeah, that's where you can find the password if you need it. But now that we have this string, we're going to go back to our .env file and fill out the, finish filling out the rest of our thing here. Hang on, I'm getting my windows sorted out. There we go. You all saw my budget there for a moment. Didn't see any dollar amounts though. It's all good. Forgot I had that pulled up. Can you show one more how to get the string for the password? Yeah. So go back to your home page. So you can start at database on the left menu and click connect. And click connect your application. Okay. And then just copy that and drop it into your code. All right, so we've done that. And back to this. Now I'm going to pull this over to another window for a second, and I'm going to paste in my own password. Just once you've done that, make sure that, so first off, make sure that you're only replacing this part of the string. So where it says password with the carets included, okay? So with the carets included, highlight this and replace it with your actual password and then save, okay? So don't forget to save your file. So I'm going to drag this over here for a second, and I'm going to replace this string with my real deal. And I saved it, and I'm going to navigate away from that. And I'm going to bring it back. Okay, so any questions there? And what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to access our connection string without actually having it sitting out there in the open. It's going to be sitting in our .env file, and it's going to be able to read it from there. Okay, so I'm also going to save my server.js file, so don't forget. All right, now let's go back to the instructions. And so we did that. We connected to MongoDB, and we're adding our connection string to the .env file. Okay. And also I should have split this into two things probably. So this is also going to, what we're also going to do in this step is set up our actual connection method to Mongo. So actually establish a connection to MongoDB using that string. We delete the carets too. Yes, so delete the little alligators, I call them carets, but the little triangle brackets or whatever. I don't know what they're called in other languages. Yeah, so delete those and the word password and replace them with your password. For Dodo, that's a great question. How does the app access the .env file if it isn't uploaded? Well, we're going to kind of tweak things before we go to Heroku. So great question. But for now, for GitHub, we're going to want to hide that .env, that variable in .env. Yeah. are folks that aren't using a VPN vulnerable in this space, like using the password. Vulnerable in this space. I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I want to answer it, but I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking there. I mean, any connection, any connection where you're sending data back and forth unencrypted can potentially be dangerous. I would assume that if you're using MongoDB for like work purposes, you're probably already going to be on a VPN. For a lot of the things that we're doing, we aren't really handling any sensitive data. So yeah, I mean, any unencrypted connection can be intercepted and potentially, something can be done with it. However, Mongo does make it very easy to change that password if needed. Yeah. You feel like a hacker using the .env? Oh, good. I'm glad it's helping worlds. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is actually do our connection to MongoDB. Okay. So because we've set up our connection string, which should be able to access the actual string. And so now we can actually start establishing our connection. Okay. So I'm going to go in my notes here. All right. What's the method that I can use to establish a connection to MongoDB? Does anybody know? And remember, Express makes things pretty straightforward. You don't got to think too hard. I'm not asking for the whole thing. I'm just, what's the general method that I use? Whatever comes to your head first is probably right. I want to connect to Mongo. Connect, yes. Yes, Sullivan, you nailed it. It's really not too crazy. So yes. So really all we need to say is, remember, we declared for MongoDB, we set up a variable called Mongo client, which is going to allow us to use associated methods with MongoDB. Yes, literally. Yep. So essentially what we're going to say is Mongo client dot connect. Hello, that's all we need, right? That's all we need for starters. We're going to add stuff to this, obviously. But yeah, so that's all we need. Now, I want to connect to the specific database and make sure that it's logging me in with my username and with my password. So what variable will I be putting inside of this method? Yeah, blip, exactly. The connection string. Yeah, that's what we need to pass to Mongo to say, hey, Mongo, I want to access this specific database and I have the credentials to do so. Yeah, so Mongo client.connect, and essentially we're just going to pass in our DB connection string. Boop, there we go. Easy peasy as that. All right. And there's a lot of different ways you could write this. You could write this as an asynchronous function. I'm going to just do it as more of a classic promise syntax, but it's up to you how you do it. You can feel free to, this is your template. You can modify it exactly how you want to. So once we connect, after we've established that connection, then we're going to set some initial parameters for that connection. We don't need, that's a good question. We don't need rec and res yet. Because we're just establishing a connection right now. We aren't really sending any data back and forth yet. But that's a good question. So this is just the setup. All right. So in the then, I'm going to say client, because we have information about the client that we're connecting to now. And we're going to do some stuff with that. So the very first thing that I like to do when I connect to my database is I like to console log that I'm connected to the database, because otherwise, how the heck am I going to know? So console log connected to database. Okay. And then I'm going to set a couple of variables. So I'm going to set my, the variable that we previously declared, DB. I'm going to set DB equal to the actual name of the database that we're connecting to. So client.db and db name. Okay, now I did leave DB name blank here. Well, we're going to go back to Mongo and we're going to actually grab the DB name in just a minute. But, and we're also going to grab a name for the collection. So DB dot collection, and then we're going to put something in here as well. Okay, so I need my database name, and because it's grabbing some information, it's grabbing some client information. When we pass in the database name, it's going to grab some information that it needs. Mongo's going to, because there's, we have a name for it that's written in English, but I'm sure there's a lot of other identifiers and things that Mongo requires in order to do stuff with it. So let's go back to Mongo real quick, and we're going to get a database name and a collection name. Now, let's have a quick pop quiz on some terminology here. So I'm going to go back to Mongo, get out of this. And I'm going to go to, on my home page again, I'm going to say browse collections. Oh, and we're going to, after we do this, we're going to take a break too. It's about time. Okay, now I have a bunch of sample collections that are set up. However, if you already have a database, you can just use whatever database name you have. So I'm going to use the same database that we used in my previous stream, just because I kind of still have it on the brain. So in my case, I'm going to choose sample mflix as my database name. Okay, it's called sample underscore mflix. So I'm just going to go back to my code and I'm going to put that in. So my DB name is going to be sample underscore mflix. Okay, now what is my collection name? So in order to see the names of the potential collections that I could use, I can expand my database, because now what are collections? So if we go back to that sort of analogy of like the UPS truck, well, the database is like the truck. So this whole sample mflix database is like the truck, and then the collection is like the boxes inside of the truck. It's kind of smaller groupings of things that can hold sort of related objects. And so if you think about it in terms of, visual analogies, I like, visual analogies in my brain. The database is like the truck, and the collections are like the boxes in the truck. Now, quick question. What are the things inside the boxes called? So database is the truck, collection is the boxes inside of the truck. What are the things inside the boxes called in MongoDB terms? Hey Sirius, welcome. Yeah, they're called documents, right? They're called documents. So inside of this particular database, these are really long documents. We're going to go to a smaller one here. I'm going to open the movies database. So each of these movies and all the associated properties with it are documents. Yes. So we're not going to worry too much about that for the purposes of this exercise, but it's just good to kind of get familiar with these terms and remember what they mean. So in this case, again, my database name is sample mflix, and my collection name is movies. So I'm going to go back to my code here, and my collection name I'm going to put in here. So we've associated everything with the appropriate variables. We can use it later on. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to push up to GitHub, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. And then when we continue, we're going to keep going with the rest of the instructions. So we're clipping along pretty good here. We just finished with step 4, and we only have 6 more to go. So I think we're doing pretty well. I don't know about you. But yeah, feel free to ask questions in the chat if you have anything over the break, and I will answer them when we come back. I'm going to do a quick git add, git commit, added, what did we add? We added variables and Mongo connection. Okay. And git push. All right. There we go. We need add timer for points. Yeah. Okay. So 5-minute timer. All right, and I'll monitor the chat when I get back, and I'll answer questions at that time. So everything should be up on GitHub if you need to review what we've done so far. But yeah, I'll see you back in 5. All right, folks, come on back. Come on back, come on back. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the timer. And get our code and our instructions pulled back up here and reorient ourselves a little bit. And I will turn my webcam back on eventually. There we go. Hello. Okay, I'm going to catch up with chat here for just 1 second. The tape held up. Indeed it did. Indeed it did, Lalo. Yes, exactly. So far. We'll see how it goes. All right. What if we're using several databases for our project? As Rascal said, you can make additional connections if you need to via additional Mongo clients. So yeah, you can set up additional Mongo client connections. Rue, did I put .env into ignore? Not yet, but yes, we will. That's a good, and I forgot to do that in the last push, so y'all get y'all get all that information anyway. Don't worry, I will change that password. So, yes, but I forgot to put the .env into the get ignore. I'm pretty sure. Let's reload and see. Yeah. Oh well, it's not that big of a deal. I'll change the password. But yes, I forgot to put the .env file into the get ignore, so it did get pushed up to GitHub. But please don't use it. Connect to your own stuff, and I will change the password. Not that big of a deal. There's nothing critical in there anyway. But we will fix that for next time. Oh, thank you for the sub, Jay Hollowell. Thank you so much. Can one actually reverse engineer by creating several placeholder databases? Placeholder databases. I mean, you can create as many databases as you want. I'm not sure what. Then go back and build. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah. So yeah, you can create as many databases as you want. They can be empty, and you can connect to them and then fill them out later. Yeah, absolutely. You could even build. So we actually did a database builder stream. If you look, I think it was 2 streams ago. We did a database builder where you can actually enter data, like structured data, into your database via an app, which makes it a little bit easier. But there's tons of different ways to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of folks answered to, worlds there as far as explaining database first connection, so thank you for that. My WPM typing speed, I actually don't know. It's not terribly fast, but I mean, yeah, it's not terribly fast, but I'm decent enough. In your VS Code, if you can't find the columns, if you're not seeing the columns on the left side, hit Control B. That should show and hide that. Control B. Yeah. Hey, FitzGenius, welcome. Yeah, thanks, Rue. I just totally forgot to do that, but we will so let's go ahead and let's add our, which I forgot to do, let's add our .env file to our getignore, okay? So right now we have node modules in there, and we're also gonna go ahead and, oh, thank you, Sensory. I appreciate it. Thank you for the cheer. We're also gonna go ahead and add our .env to that going forward. So when you push your stuff up, just add your .env to your getignore, and that'll make sure it doesn't get pushed, like the mistake that I made. Quick recap of env file. So basically the env file is where you put the stuff that you don't want folks to see. So inside of my env file, I have my database connection string. This includes my username and my password for the specific database. So it's not like it's my Google password or anything like that. It is a uniquely generated password for my specific database. And in fact, I'm going to change that password right now before I forget. So it'll only take me a moment. Bear with me. I am going to reset that password. Let's see here. Going to maximize this and get this and just reset the password. edit, auto-generate a password, show it, copy it, and I'm going to not show you that. I'm going to generate a new one because I showed it to you. There we go. I'll get it right eventually. All right, so I'm going to copy that and let's see, did it copy? Let's double check. I don't think it did. Edit, copy, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and update this. So it's on my clipboard now. I'm going to update it. And we can see that when I do update that password, it takes a minute. It doesn't do it right away. Yeah, Lily, I did post my env to GitHub, so that's why I'm changing my password right now. Luckily, it's easy to do. So it's still deploying. So while that is working, I'm going to drop it into my env file and fix that little exposure. It's not the first time I've done that, so I'm not too worried. All right, and it should be done. Password should be fixed and in place. Okay, there we go. All right. First try, indeed. Yeah. Worlds. So navigating the collections isn't too difficult. I mean, really, you just go to your database and you just say browse collections, and that's where you can see all your stuff. So just click browse collections from the home page, and that's how you get there. Yeah. Okay, so connect to the database. Will I pivot my career toward a full stack developer instead of SQL dev after we finish learning with Leon? No, I don't think so. I've got some freelance clients on the side, so that's going well. But I like my job. I really do. It's a good place to work. I like my team. I like my managers. So at least for now, I'm happy where I am. But that doesn't mean, just because you're happy where you are doesn't mean you should stop learning things. So that's why I'm doing this mostly. I think it's cool to learn stuff. So for the CRUD app, can we add .env in that specific variable? So are you talking about like the 6-hour CRUD tutorial? Yeah, you could add this you could add an environment field instead of just having that connection string just hanging out there. You could add a .env file and add the variable instead, and it would connect to it just like that. Yeah. Timing is a vibe for real. Yeah. Sometimes it all works out, doesn't it? All right, so we've got our connection. The next thing we're going to do, let's go back to our instructions and let's see what we have next. I'm actually going to close this .env file because otherwise I'll click on it again and show you all the password again. All right, let's go back to our instructions. So we've done our connection to MongoDB and we've added our connection string to the .env file. And I think another thing I'm going to put here is I'm going to change these numbers, but so this will be 5 here. Add so it's going to have 11 steps, but whatever. Add .env file to gitignore. Yeah, we're just going to put that in as a step, so that's easy to forget, like I did. Oregon, welcome. Hey, thank you for the raid. Hey, good to see ya. Always good to see ya. What were y'all working on tonight? We are building a full stack template to make it easier to build full stack apps, so you're welcome to stick around if you would like to do so. Not particularly exciting, but I think particularly useful. So I hope y'all might find it interesting. ! GitHub, and I have a full stack template repo on my GitHub if you would like to see what we have done so far. Yeah, ! GitHub. And the instruction list is, yes, so the specific, Rascal has linked to the specific repo right there in the chat. Full stack template is the repo. And there is a instructions.txt file in there. There was also a .env file, but don't worry, I've changed the password. So that was an accidental push on my part. It's no longer valid. All right, awesome. Good to see you as always, Oregon. I always appreciate the raids. That's so great. All right, so we've created a new step here to add the .env file to the get ignore because I forgot to do it. So we have 2 step 5s, but whatever. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our port. And so our port is going to actually help us. Our port is actually going to help us initialize our endpoint. The point out somewhere outside of our file that is listening for input. It's going to help us create our endpoint. And let's see, let me pull this back up. So does anybody know what method do I use? What express method do I use to start up my my endpoint, my listening point? Remember, express is pretty literal in the way that it names its methods. So hopefully you all can surmise based on what I've said what method we might use to set up a listening point. Yeah, exactly. App.listen, right? Exactly. App.listen. Yeah, it's that easy. Yeah, Triz is, and it's instructions.txt. It's not a README. I thought about making a README and then I didn't. So yeah, it's a .txt file inside the repo itself. Yeah. App.listen. Yeah, so it's just that easy, right? Express names things in a pretty literal manner, right? So they don't make things too cryptic, which I think is really nice. So app.listen. And sometimes you may not always want your port to necessarily, the specific port number that you're using to necessarily be public knowledge. So what you could also do if you wanted is you could put your port number inside of your .env file as well. And I believe that's what Leon has done the last couple times. So, I mean, you don't have to. You could just set it, you could literally just like set a manual port like inside of the method itself. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put it inside of my .env file. So I'm going to get my windows lined up here. And I'm going to move my screen over here for just 1 second. And I'm going to just, all I'm going to do is I'm going to show, and I'm going to set it up first for myself. And then I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Okay. So right now I'm setting a variable inside of my .env file and I'm setting it equal to 8,000. And I will show you what I did, or I'll tell you what I did anyway. And so inside of my .env file, I just set up a variable that was literally port 8,000. That's all I did inside my .env file, okay? So easy peasy lemon squeezy, yes. And so we're gonna have it pull that port information out of our .env file. So if I want to do that, what's a way that I might tell my code to go into my .env file and grab the port environment variable? And I'll give you a clue. We did it before when we grabbed the connection string. So it's going to have a similar syntax. So what would we say? Yeah, like Rascal said and like Hazel said, when you go to deploy somewhere else, it's important to read the port number from an environment variable. Just keep it hidden. Yeah, right. Yeah, you got it. We're going to say process.env.port. Port. Now, if for some reason we deploy our app and the port that I have set it to, which is 8,000 inside of my .env, if that is not available for some reason, then we want Heroku to be able to kind of choose a port for us. So in that case, we can also set an OR condition here. Remember, the 2 pipes is OR, and we can just then say port and let Heroku pick one for us because we don't want it to fail just because 8,000 isn't available for some reason. So this is just kind of just housekeeping to help us ensure that we're going to have that Heroku is going to have a port to deploy to. Okay, so app.listen, we've said, all right, we're going to try to set a port and then let Heroku choose one if it's not available. And then, but we also want to know that when we deploy this app, especially locally while we're testing, we're going to want to have some indication that our port is up and running. So really, we can kind of continue this and add an additional parameter here, or add an additional element inside of this method. And we're just going to create a quick little anonymous function. Don't get too hung up on the syntax here. You can just copy it along. We're just going to make a little arrow function here, and we're basically just going to say, hey, as soon as this connection is established, just give me a console log and say, hey, your server is running. And you could even say server is running on port, whatever port. So server is running on whatever port it ended up with. Yeah, so why put it inside the .env file to hide keys and passwords? In this case, it's not doing anything super important. So yeah, I mean, in this case, the reason I put it inside the .env file is because that's what Leon did in the last class, in the last example that he gave us. So I'm choosing to kind of follow along with that process. I'm not 100% sure whether it really needs to be in there, but I'm just in keeping with what we've been doing in our last few demonstrations. Why can't I keep server up console log on prod? Charisma, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. Feel free to ask again. I'm not sure I'm fully gathering your question. I'm happy to answer if I can. Oh, Raccoon, that's an interesting point. If you know what port something is listening to an app on, and you know the IP because you're on the website, you now potentially have access to the database. Ah, yeah, that's a definite security concern. Yeah, Josue, that's a good point from Rascal there. They need to be on separate lines. So for example, inside of your .env file, you would have like, you'd have your DB string, not commented out. I'm just commenting it out here just so it doesn't get red lines. And then you'd have your port, on a separate line, right? So they'd be separate from each other. So it shouldn't be giving you an error inside the .env file. Yeah, and we're also allowing Heroku to assign a random port number as well. That's a great point, Hazel. Yeah. But for now, we're using 8000 as declared in our .env file. Okay, so we have a console log when our port is running, and we're saying server is running on port whatever. And so these console logs are really just telling us two things. They're telling us, number one, when our port is running, number two, when we're connected to the database. Oh, Honda Civic. Oh my goodness. You know what, Honda Civic? I just took my foster kittens back to the shelter earlier today. You just missed them. However, when I get my next batch of foster kittens, we have Chris P. Nugget, who is going to be naming one of the foster kittens, and I will also bring, I'll bring them on cam, and so you can see them. So Honda Civic, you will get your foster kitten, just maybe not tonight, okay? But you will get your foster kitten, I promise. Because yes, I did just take them back to the shelter earlier today to get spayed and neutered. Oh, thank you for the subscription, Commander Cool. Thank you so much. Everybody spend their Bezos bucks tonight. I love it. Yeah. Honda does have mad points on every channel. Yes, you will get you will absolutely get your foster kitten cam there, Honda. I promise. Okay. Let's see. So we've got our port, we've got our Mongo client.connect. Well, now let's see what's next in our instructions. So The next thing it says is kind of a little interlude here where we need to test our Mongo and our port connection. So we can actually try running this, and there's a couple different ways we can do that. So what's the way that I could just do it manually? What's the way that I could kind of just start my server manually? What's a phrase that I could use in the terminal to kind of just manually fire up my server? Oh, and I need to also save my server.js. Node server.js. Yeah, so that's a way that I can manually fire up my server. But another way that we could do it, as several folks pointed out, is that we could also set up Nodemon. Indeed, remember, Nodemon helps us sort of manually restart our server when we need to make changes or when we screw up and we want to test something again. So yeah, there's two ways we can do it. We can do node server.js to manually start the server, and then we'd have to manually stop it and restart it every single time. But we can also use Nodemon to sort of restart it dynamically every time we make a change. Write them scripts, yeah. So Jay Hallowell, did you declare, so when you set up your .env file, did you set it up as .env? Like specifically .env, not .env.js or anything like that, but just .env? Because it should be formatting itself appropriately based on the way you set it up. So, and a couple folks are saying, should we define port? That's actually a good question. So, because I was just noticing in my notes here when I built the earlier version, the test version of this app, I actually don't have port defined, and it still worked. So I think because it's defined in the .env file, it still works. But we're gonna do a little experiment here. We're gonna test it out, okay? Yeah, I did it in .env. So I think it should still work if I defined it in the .env file. I think it should be able to read it from there because that's what I did in my earlier version of this app. Okay, so let's try it. We're gonna take a first crack at this and see if there's any mistakes or any connection issues, and we'll be able to tell really quickly. And I think when you're setting up an app, it's really important to just build out this basic shell. Start your Mongo connection and start your port, and code out your port, and then don't do anything else yet. Don't try to put any other code in, and just test these connections first before you do anything else, okay? And also too, let's go ahead and set up Nodemon as well. So in order to set up Nodemon, what I need to do is I need to go into my package.json file, and I can see that I have Nodemon installed as a dependency, right? Well, what I want to do is I want to create a little script that's going to launch Nodemon in a very similar way that we can launch our server right now manually using node server.js. So does anybody know what's the standard script that I would use in order to set up Nodemon and make it be launchable? Yeah, and actually Nacho Cal already put it in chat, so you're ahead of me. That's awesome. Yeah, so we go to package.json and we set up a new script called dev. Oh, sorry, I need a comma here. Dev colon, and then we say Nodemon server.js. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to launch Nodemon server.js from a little custom script called dev. And then don't forget to save your package.json. And okay. All right, so let's try it and let's see what we get. We might get errors. That's okay. We'll fix them. Large part of being a dev is troubleshooting, right? So I see some folks might be getting errors if they try to put this template literal inside of the console log. So we can take it out if we need to. So, all right. When I want to launch Nodemon using my little script, I can say npm run dev, because this is going to run the script that I wrote. Okay, so we got an error. That's fine. And look, okay, how do we tell what the problem is? I can see the problem, but I want to go slow here and let's figure out how we can see what the problem is. So I'm going to make my terminal bigger. So we got an error. It says the app crashed. Okay, fine. We need to look back through the error to see the problem, and I do see the problem. And it says reference error, port is not defined. Okay, sure. So, and it's going to tell us too where the problem, specifically where the problem is. I did see it. Where did it go? I did see it for a second. I don't see it now, but that's probably just my eyes not finding it. But anyway, it did tell us exactly where the problem was. So it doesn't like the template literal inside the console log. So we can just remove it. It doesn't need to be there. So let's remove it and let's try again. Or you could also say, yeah, you could also change it to be process.env.port as well. That's a good point, Goofer. But I'm just gonna take it out for now. I'm not gonna make it harder than it has to be. All right, and I'm gonna save again. Oops. I was inside the terminal when I did that. There we go. Okay, look, now once I saved, look what I get in the console. Server is running on port. That means my port is listening. Now it's taking a little minute to try to connect to the database, and the next thing it says is connected to database. So what does that mean? Well, that means that my port is running successfully on 8000, and I was able to connect to MongoDB. So the two things that we set out to do there, we were able to do, which is great. Yeah, port isn't defined. Yeah, so there's two ways you can get around that. You can just remove the template literal from the console log. So just have it say something like this, server is running on port, or just server is running. It doesn't matter. This is just for you. It doesn't have to be, it can say, you know, unicorns are cool or something like that. It doesn't matter what it is. Or you could change the template literal to say process.env.port. That's up to you. You love when it says connected to database? Yeah, I love it too. Okay, Jay Hollowell, that means that your it's not able to read properly from your .env file. So, Jay Hollowell, so sorry, Josue, did you go into your package.json and confirm that you do have .env installed? Did you install that dependency, Josue? Like, go to your package.json and look for this specific .env dependency and make sure that you have it. Fivel, so we put the port variable inside of our .env file. That's where we put it. So if it's undefined for you, then you just make sure you declare it inside of your .env file. So Fat Cat, also, again, make sure that you have installed .env. That's the first thing to check. Anon, no, it doesn't need to be a string. It can just be a straight number. It doesn't need to be a string. Okay, so you have, that's the first thing to check. Okay, now go back to your server.js file. If you have .env, go back to your server.js file and make sure that you have this specific statement right here, require .env.config. And if you can't get this working, this process.env, port, all that kind of thing, you can also just hard code this if you prefer. You can just have it be, yeah, so Josue, that's correct. Port equals 8000, yeah. Yeah, you can define the port variable in server.js. You can put it up right up here. There's no harm in that. Sorry, let const port we'll just go ahead and do that because this seems to be a stumbling block for folks. So that's totally fine. We'll go ahead and declare our port as 8000 here as well. It's not going to hurt anything. So if it's not working in your .env file, just go ahead and hard code it inside of your server.js. Again, it's not going to hurt anything for the kind of thing that we're doing. And try your connection again. Yeah, now you can use the template literal in the console log. So I'm going to go, since I know this is working, I'm going to go ahead and just push this up to GitHub real quick for you all so you can have it. And let me just check my git ignore here. We've got node modules and .env, perfect. So I've saved my server.js. I'm going to save my instructions, and I'm going to do a quick git push here. So if I want to stop Nodemon, what's the way that I do it? How do I stop Nodemon from running so I can type in the console again? Control C. Yep, exactly. I will hydrate in just a second, Taco. I'm just going to do this push real quick. Otherwise, I'll lose track of my own train of thought. Git add and git commit m added port and Mongo connections. Okay, and git push. There we go. All right, so and Rascal very helpfully shared another link to the repo there. So if you just joined us, that'll be the most up-to-date repo for this code. Alrighty. So, Josue, so that connection string starts with MongoDB. So that means there's something wrong with your connection string. Either there's something wrong with your .env file or something wrong with the string itself. So double check that you've copied the connection string from your Mongo database, like the full connection string, and that you've replaced the password characters with the actual password for your database. So not for your Mongo account, but like for the actual database. And I think I showed where to find that a little bit earlier. So double check that that's correct, and make sure that you've saved your .env file too. Yeah, and you could console. That's a good point, Rascal. You could also console log the connection string as well to see if it's even like coming through, right? That's a great point. Yeah, when in doubt, console log everything. That's how I do it. May not be best practice, but who cares? We're throwing spaghetti at the wall. We see what sticks. Yeah. Okay. So we've got our same. Are just Crafty, are you saying it's not working for you, or are you saying that you like to throw spaghetti at the wall? Oh, you console log everything. Yeah. Yeah, so also, okay, that's a great point. So make sure that when you're trying to connect, make sure that like your database name and your database collection, those need to be yours. Those need to be your own database name and your own collection name. They can't be mine because you don't have mine. Yeah, so you need to use your own stuff. Unless you also install the sample databases, in which case this might work, but let's not make it too confusing. Just use your own database and use your own connection name. Yeah, it really doesn't have to be, so if inside of your .env file, it does not have to be in quotes. Here, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to, I know this works, so I'm going to get rid of, my password in this .env file, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, just so we can kind of get some visual on this here. So 2 seconds. Let me get rid of the password, replace it with something else, and show you what the inside of my secret .env file looks like. Okay. There you go. So this is my .env file. So it only has 2 things in it. and it just has my database string. You can see there's no let or const or anything like that. Just DB string equals, and then the connection string, no quotes or anything like that, and then just the port number. So if you're having trouble with your .env file, double check that against yours. Make sure you don't have any quotes floating around in here, any extra characters, just only the variables that you need. Go for ABC, always be consoling, indeed. DB is initialized outside the code block so that we can use it in additional functions. That's not going to be so necessary in this particular exercise, but in a lot of the things that we're going to be doing, we're going to need information from that database in multiple locations. So multiple gets, multiple puts or posts. We're going to need to have that database information and then do operations on that database information. Yeah. Do you have comment, Josue, do you have like comment marks at the start of it? Yeah, I mean, so if it's not reading properly from your .env file, just defining the port locally will make sure it works. Yeah. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody's got to look at this. You can see at least what mine looks like. So I'm going to take this away and I'm going to put my password back. I'm going to Control Z on this bad boy. All right, we're back to baseline and back here. Okay. So Jay Hallowell, maybe can you send me, so just grab a screenshot of just grab a screenshot of your like screen that's with the .env file, and just shoot me a message on Discord and we'll take a look at it maybe after the stream. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep, so it's interesting, there's some folks maybe having some formatting things, but yeah, your string should really be inside of your .env file. If you're using VS Code as your editor, it should all be sort of like white. It shouldn't really have any formatting. So yeah, and also yeah, double check your password, that too. I've made that mistake before. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions and let's see where we're at. So we tested our Mongo and our port connection. Awesome. So now we can move to our step 6, which is where we set our middleware. So middleware is kind of some tools that help us when data is flowing back and forth to and from our server, to our database, to our app, and back and forth and back and forth. What middleware helps us do is perform like transformations or read that data or format it in a way that all parties can understand. So it kind of helps clean up what's flowing back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All of your middleware runs before your routes. Yep. Okay, so we'll go ahead and set our middleware, and we need to kind of set that in a specific location inside of our server.js file. So really what we want to do is we want to put our middleware prior to any CRUD operations. So prior to any gets or puts or posts or deletes. So we're going to put it right after our Mongo client.connect. Okay. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to be sort of saying either use or set in order to sort of initialize this middleware. So some of it might not make sense right away, but we will find a use for most of these things. All right, so the first thing we're going to say is app.set, and I'm going to set a view engine. And I'm going to set that view engine to EJS. Now we mentioned EJS earlier, right? It was one of the dependencies that we installed. And just as a reminder, what does EJS do? What does EJS help us do? I haven't asked a question in a while, so gotta do some Anki, or yeah, Anki here. Thank you, Anki. Yeah, right. It helps us with templating. And we're actually not really going to use it for this particular exercise, but this is, again, this is a template. We're building a template right here, and you're going to be using EJS quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and initialize it here. So we're going to set our view engine to be EJS. Yes, and it allows us to run JS to sort of generate HTML, right? Yeah, it's a shorthand tool. It spits out HTML, exactly. Okay, so we're setting our view engine to be EJS. And the next thing we're going to say is app.use, so slightly different, app.use express dot static express static public. Yeah, there we go. Public. Okay. Express dot static public. So what am I doing here? Does anybody know? If we don't know, that's okay. We're gonna set this up in a minute, but I'm curious. Does anybody know when I say app.use express.static public, what am I setting up here? Yeah, not your call. So pug is great. We're using EJS just for starters, but I'm sure we are going to be switching to some more friendly options here along the line. Yeah, just in our class right now, we're starting out with EJS. Yeah, exactly. Some great answers here. So when we set up public in this way, we're setting up a folder to hold our CSS, our main.js, and it lets our app that's sitting out there on Heroku or wherever, it lets it serve up some files in public when we call them. Yeah. Yeah, it sets up some external files. Exactly. Yeah, we're setting up some external files and we can store them in the public folder. And when we do that, our code knows that's where it needs to go in order to get the files that it needs. Yep. And it serves up, that's a great, and Rascal, that's a great answer there too. It serves up all the files from the public folder if anyone accesses them by essentially visiting the home page of our app. So they go to the URL that we give them, it's the root, it's the home page, and everything that's served on that page will be pulled out of the public folder. Yeah, exactly. So the next thing we're going to set up is app.use, again, express.URL encoded, and we're going to say extended :true. Okay, and now what is this doing? Well, it kind of gives us the answer here in VS Code. It says returns middleware that only parses URL encoded bodies and only looks at requests where the content type header matches the type option. Whoa. Oh boy. So there's a lot going on there, but really what this is doing is it's helping us parse URLs. So don't need to focus too hard on it. Just put it in there and you'll know it's being used. It's helping us handle URLs that are being sent back and forth. So don't worry about it too much. Again, that's the thing where we're at right now. Like we don't have to necessarily know 100% what every single thing is doing. We just have to know when to use stuff, right? It's Legos, and we need to know how to build them into a castle. We don't know how to make the Lego bricks themselves. Which meme would Leon use for the explanation? I don't know. Which one would he use? Is it suitable for work? Is it PG? Well, what's the meme, Rubel? I'm genuinely curious. Oh, the disrespect. Yes, the disrespect, indeed. Okay, the next one we're going to set up, app.use. We're almost done, I promise. Is express.json. So, okay, what's JSON? What is that? You don't have to tell me, like, you don't have to give me a technical answer. Just when we say express.json, why do I care about somebody named Jason? Like, I don't know. What is that even doing? What is it for? Where do we see JSON? Y'all are funny. I love it. Yeah, you're great. Yeah, so raccoon, yeah. So it's if we see JSON in objects, right? It's kind of how objects are formatted when they travel back and forth. Yeah. It's in our routes, right? When we send things back and forth, app to server, server, database to server, that kind of thing, it's formatted as JSON objects. Yeah. And so what this is doing is this middleware is going to help Express parse that JSON and figure out how to pull it apart and get what it needs out of it. Yeah. And it allows us to be able to do those reads. Yeah. It allows us to read the data that's being passed back and forth, to understand the JSON that's being sent back and forth. Yeah. He always returns our stuff to us. Yeah, that was great. I love it. Y'all are on point tonight with the jokes. Yep. Exactly. You'll know. Okay, let's pause for a second and think about like how many folks are able to answer these questions. Would you have been able to answer these questions like a month ago? Like, I mean, we're just like on a rocket ship to Mars. It's great. All right, the last one we're just going to do is app.use cores. Cores. Here we go. Yeah, cores. I can't spell it wrong. It's pretty awesome. I know. 6 months ago, I knew nothing. Yeah, exactly. So the last one, we already kind of talked about cores, right? It allows for cross-origin requests and stops that stupid cores error from happening in the browser, right? Yeah. A month ago, I had no brain grooves. A month ago, I would have been, who is JSON? Indeed. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, same here, right? Like I am a back-end developer, SQL developer, have been my entire career. I have not branched out prior to this course. And so all this is new to me too. And so it's really exciting how fast we're learning stuff. Hazel, why no body parser? We don't need it. A lot of apps do use body parser, but it's actually been like phased out. It's no longer required. Yeah. Like a lot of the tutorials we have done, have used body parser, but it's no longer required. Yeah, it's just an older library. That's a great answer, Rascal. It's an older library that Express has built into the same logic that we're using now for URL encoded and JSON. Yeah, so we don't need to declare body parser explicitly anymore. Yep. I feel like these libraries change so fast that every tutorial that you do is going to be out of date in some way. So it's important to know about the older stuff because you're going to see that, especially in code at businesses and corporations. Their stuff's going to be way out of date. Okay, so we've set up our middleware. I'm going to save this and do a quick push. Let's see what time it is. It's about break time again. So I'm going to do a push. We're going to look at what we have coming up next, and then we'll take another break. So git add, git commit, add middleware, git push. Okay. There we go. All right. Let's look back at our instructions and see what we have next. So we already created our gitignore file. We did that way ages ago. So this step should actually be moved. I'm going to move this step up higher because I don't like it where it is. So we're going to put it, like maybe right here. Create gitignore file and push to GitHub. Yeah, we'll do that. And I know the steps are out of order now, but don't sweat it. I'll fix it later. Okay, so what's next? So we set our middleware. The next thing we're going to do is after the break, we're going to start setting up our structure, our folder structure, so our app can read from the appropriate files at the appropriate times. Oh yeah, thank you for coming, Dakota. I always love seeing you here. Have to catch the VOD. Yes, and that's a good point. My VODs are available on my Twitch channel immediately. They stay up on my Twitch channel for 60 days. After 60 days, I always move them before, but I also have a YouTube channel with my older content that's more than 2 months old. So !YouTube if you want a link to my YouTube channel. !YouTube for YouTube, !Twitter for Twitter, !GitHub for GitHub. So pretty straightforward, right? Yeah. So grab it from there. Oh, you got your connection, Josue. That's awesome. Yeah. Way to go. More like 11th try? Yeah. Hey, the important thing is that you kept trying. Seriously. Like like we say, coding, a major part of coding is managing frustration, and I think you managed your frustration pretty well there. You powered through and you got it. It's rad. Okay, I think somebody had a hydrate earlier and I didn't do it, so I apologize. I need to hydrate now. All right, let's. So I pushed to GitHub. Our next thing, we're gonna when we come back, we're gonna set up our folder structure for our main.js to be public, and our styles CSS to be public. Um, and then we're almost done, really. So we're clipping along pretty good. Remember when this took 6 hours before? Okay, let's get a timer going. You remember this used to take 6 hours? Look how fast we're going. Look how good we are. All right, we're gonna reset, start the timer, and I will see you back here in 5. Okay, folks, come on back. We got about a minute left. Come on back, get settled. Grab a glass of water, a cup of tea. Stretch your fingers, stretch your wrists. Safety Vest says, I can now stare at job requirements at software companies and understand what they're asking for. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. The fact that you can be like, yes, I know what those words mean. You know, that's a huge part of it. All right, and we're back. Okay, we are on the home stretch, folks. We have a functioning connection to MongoDB. We have a functioning port. We have our middleware and our variables all set up. So we've really laid all the groundwork that we need that you can really start building on. But the next thing that we need, the next sort of layer of groundwork that we do need is step, well, I don't know what step this is anymore. The numbering has changed. But theoretically, this used to be step 8, which is create our public and our view folders. So we need to add main.js and style.css to public and index.ejs to views. Okay, so this is not going to be terribly hard. We all know how to make folders and files, right? So however you do that, whether that's in the command line or whether that's in the GUI here, I'm going to use the GUI just because I like to. It's up to you how you do it. I'm going to create a folder called public, if I could spell. All right. And I'm going to create another folder called, is it view or views? Hang on. I need to confirm that. It is called views. Thank you, Microsoft Defender, for interrupting my stream. All right, so I have 2 new folders, one called public, one called views, and inside of those, I'm going to put some additional files. So right now we have a server, right? We just have a server and it can handle connections to and from, it can handle requests to and from the database, but it is very much a back-end tool, right? It is, you know, it's not really showing anything to a person that visits our eventual site. So if we want to deliver some content to the viewer of the site, right? We want to make that content public to the viewer. Hence why we now have a public folder where we're going to be putting some of our stuff. So inside of this public folder, I'm going to create, you know, files that we're very familiar with. I'm going to create a main.js and I'm going to create a style.css. I'm not going to put anything in here just yet. We're going to get our structure set up, and inside of my views, I'm going to create a file called, what am I going to create? What file do I put inside of the views folder? Yeah, exactly, Dion. Yeah, so, yep, that's where our EJS goes. Yeah, so we're going to create a file called, instead of index.html, we're going to create a file called index.ejs. Yeah, and it goes in its own folder. That's just how EJS rolls. It goes in its own folder called views. And if you remember, inside of our server.js, we actually set up a little bit of middleware here where we set our view engine to EJS. So it's going to know to look inside of this views folder and find our index.ejs. Yeah, exactly. Y'all got it. Y'all know your stuff now. Absolutely. Okay, so we've got our our folder structure set up here. So let's see what else. So we have main.js and style.css to public and index.ejs to views. Okay, perfect. And so that finishes step 8. Excuse me. But in my original step 9 here was initializing the Git repo and committing. Well, we already did that. So I'm going to replace step 9. I'm going to say add content to main.js style.css index.ejs. So that's what I have all this stuff about setup, but I don't actually have anything about adding content. So that's gonna be the new step there. Yeah. Starbucks, yes, you are in luck, my friend. We have tons of previous sessions where we have done tutorials on building CRUD apps start to finish. We have, I think, 2 or 3 additional ones now. So if you go on my Twitch channel, starting on May 29th, so 24 days ago, you will see a tutorial, a 6-hour tutorial where we built a really, we went through full on start to finish, like setting up Mongo accounts, all that stuff. So you might want to start with that one. It's 6 hours, but I do think it's worth it. You can fast forward through the parts that you already know about, or fast forward through the boring parts and the breaks. It makes it go a little faster. But yes, we have that wonderful long tutorial. Then I have another one. I have another tutorial a little after that where it's called Field Guide to Aliens. So we built another full stack app there. Yeah, we've done several now. So, yep, feel free to go back through my Twitch catalog and you should find plenty of material there. Great question. Yeah, this is sort of like that. This is the light, breezy version of that 6-hour tutorial where we're finishing it in like 2.5 hours instead. So practically 5 minutes, really. No time at all. Okay, so adding content to main.js, style.css, and index.ejs. Now, remember that the point of this lesson today is more to be a template for you. This is your canvas, this is your scaffold, this is your foundation upon which you can now build your own stuff. So I don't really have a lot of content that's going to go into this one, into this particular app. This is your empty vessel upon which you can lend your genius and build your masterpiece. So as far as content goes, not going to add a ton. However, we are going to add some necessary items. So inside of index.ejs, so what we would normally see as index.html, in this case it's EJS, I'm just going to drop some knowledge. You can put whatever you want in here, it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. So in here I'm just putting a little bit of text, and actually no EJS at all. This is for you where you can add your own EJS to do what you want, but you can also just put regular HTML as well. So I'm just putting some text in here as well as in some instructions on how to deploy to Heroku, which we will do in just a minute. So this is just some text to fill the file, and what this is going to do is it's going to, when somebody visits the home page for our Heroku deployment, this is what they will see as text on the page. And so if I go real quick, if I go back to my original deployment, this is what it looks like when someone visits the home page for the Heroku deployment. They see that HTML, right? So this is acting as this deployment is acting as both our server and as a place where you can also serve up some content. So that's what that's going to do. All right, so I'm just going to save this. And so we've got content in our index.ejs. Redev, yeah. So that's a good question. So we don't need an HTML file at all when using EJS. Yes, that's correct. So what the EJS file does is it does some JavaScript and then essentially spits out HTML when it's done. So the end result of what it serves up is HTML, but even though what's in the file itself is EJS. But the end result ends up being HTML that can be displayed in the DOM. Yeah. Oh, you watched the Alien one, Josue? That's great. Yeah, that one was so fun to make. I love that field guide to aliens. All right, so this is our index.ejs. Now, our style.css is again going to be really rudimentary. Not a lot going on here. Really, all I did was just set a font family. You could set it to whatever you want. I don't know. You could do like wingdings. It doesn't matter. Font family. What's a fun font? Somebody give me a fun font. what's a font that's like readable? Or okay. All right. Nobody's giving me any fonts, so this is what you get. Can I do Comic Sans? I really wanted to do yeah, thanks, Safety Vest. I wanted to do Comic Sans. Dang it, but it's not in there. Why is it not in there? I'm so disappointed. Can I do Comic Sans? Can I just like see if it'll work? Wait, I have to put it in quotes. This is what you get. All right, we'll try that. We'll see if it doesn't work, it'll just default to Times New Roman or whatever. And that's a good point that somebody brought up. You're right, I don't have the appropriate headers here, so we can add our appropriate doc type headers as well. So, yep, good catch there. So a quick way you can do that inside of your index.ejs is you can just type HTML and choose HTML5. And what you get is the standard header set. And just put your content inside of the body. Yeah. So I'm just going to do that to make it look, appropriate and display appropriately. So good practice. All right. We can say, I'm just going to change the title to be app template. There we go. And I'll save that. Comic Sans should work. VS Code just refuses to suggest it, obviously. Why would it refuse the glory of Comic Sans? Indeed. Well, we're going to try it and we'll see if it works. I ain't going with no Roboto. That's too boring. We're rolling with Comic Sans. I have spoken. All right, so we've got our index.ejs, we've got our style.css, and what we need next is main.js. That is a great question, Josue. Why do we use EJS instead of a regular index.html? Well, what EJS allows us to do is it allows us to sort of dynamically take in the information that we're getting from our server and from our database and render that as HTML appropriately. So if we were getting, the data, when we're using a live app, you're going to have a lot of variation in the data depending on state of the code and that kind of thing. And so if you're using EJS can better interpret what's coming in from the server and from the database and render it as it needs to be rendered, I guess. Yeah. What if you don't add the boilerplate for HTML and left it the way it was prior to that? It wouldn't. In this case, the code is so simple it wouldn't matter. However, best practice, you need those headers and the appropriate tags. Yeah, in this case, I think my original version of this does not have the headers. So this version that you see right here, it doesn't have the headers and it works just fine. But it also doesn't have like my link to my CSS. So that's, so like my font didn't work and that kind of thing because it doesn't have any like the links to the script or anything like that. So so we've got our headers here. Let's go ahead and we need to add our script links and our link to our style sheet as well. Yeah, Hazel, exactly. And we can add in loops and conditionals and basically JavaScript code that can spit out our HTML directly for us. So yeah, it's pretty nifty. And 2 seconds. I'm going to get this wrong, but let's see. What is it? So this is the kind of thing I never memorized. As far as putting together the link to the style sheet, somebody rescue me here. Link. What is it? Gosh dang it. I don't have this memorized. Setting up the header. I can open one of my other projects and just look at it there. Public. Use. Open with Notepad++. All right, I got it. Link style sheet. Boop, boop. Thanks, everybody. Much appreciated. There we go. All right, style.css. Okay, let me make sure I can find it. Let's see. Now, do I need to do public or will it recognize that? Let's see. style.css. There we go. Okay, so you notice that it didn't quite recognize where I was trying to link to because I'm in a views folder. And so it didn't see where it couldn't find the style.css. So I had to say public/style.css in order for it to locate it properly. Yeah. Okay, just catching up with the chat. 1 second. You have it hard-coded in memory? Yeah. I haven't done enough HTML lately. Yeah. You have it taped on your desk? Oh, that's awesome. That's actually not a bad idea, taping those common things on like a note card at your desk. Yeah. Okay. And I'm also going to grab the link to my script as well. So my script is just going to be source, and that's going to be at the bottom here of the very bottom of my body. And that source is going to probably need to be public. And remember to choose your main.js. You don't want to choose your server.js because in this case, our index.ejs is going to be talking to main.js, okay? Our server just does its own thing. It's off out there. It's doing important backend stuff. It doesn't care about what is being shown to the user directly anyway. It can be passing information back and forth, but it shouldn't be a script source for our index.ejs. The source for our index.ejs should be our main.js, which is in the public folder, okay? You recently goofed with, yeah, I made a bunch of API projects. That's awesome. Doing some CSS earlier? Oh boy, indeed. I love everybody's slightly different experiences, yeah. Okay, so that looks better than it did before, so I'm gonna go ahead and save that. Perfect. Now, if I were to, let's see, so if I actually want to, use EJS to like display data inside of my HTML, I do still need to have something in my main.js that's going to help me communicate back and forth with the server. So in this case, we don't have any EJS in our file, but if I did, if I did want to if I did want to kind of get data to pass it to our EJS, if we had it in here, what would be the type of method that I would use to do that? So inside of my main.js, this is where you put the code that reaches out to the server to send information back and forth. Info can travel back and forth using, let's see, so if I wanted to send information back and forth to my server on the app side of things, what would I use? What could I use? This might be kind of a hard question if you haven't done these projects before. But so think back to way back in the day when all we knew how to do was get things from an API that somebody else had already created. What would I use? Let's not make this too hard on ourselves. Yeah. Y'all got that? Yep. And it can travel back and forth. So using fetches, right? So we're not going to do that tonight, just because we would just end up going way long if I started actually building out the infrastructure that communicates back and forth. Yeah, exactly. Fetch. What we're doing tonight is we're setting up this scaffolding that will allow you to implement this stuff. If you're not sure how to implement this stuff, feel free to go back and watch some of my previous streams. And I also have tons of repositories on my GitHub, !GitHub, that contain examples of doing exactly this, of how we can talk back and forth to our server and then set up the listening points inside of our server.js that can handle this information and communicate back and forth to our database. Okay, so if you're not sure how to do this, check out my GitHub repos, check out my past Twitch videos, and also check out Leon's streams on this very topic, which we will be covering much more in depth as we get into back into class time again. So, okay, so I'm just kind of putting a placeholder note in here that this is where you fetch, and this is where you start passing those those CRUD requests back and forth. So that's what the main.js is for in this case. However, we aren't going to be using it for this very basic template. All right, so where are we at? We added our content to our main.js, our style.css, and our index.ejs. Excellent. Now we are on the final step, my friends, other than the last test that we're going to be doing. Your GitHub is based on fetch and prayers. That's great. I did a raw comment step, but do you have your comments in your text file or in the code? So these steps right here, these are in the text file. And then the comments that I just said about fetches, those are in the main.js file, just to show what it's for since it's empty. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Okay, so we're going to be creating a Heroku repo here, and we're going to be pushing our server.js and all the associated files up to that Heroku repo. A lot of what we learned be changed as of course. I wouldn't say changed. I would say maybe added to. Like the basic building blocks, the basic steps that we're following, I think are really not going to change. We might learn some additional tools that can help us, some additional add-ons, some maybe more streamlined ways to do things, and that that's a natural progression, right? You start doing things the basic way, the grunt way, and then you learn the types of things that streamline the process. But since you had to do it the old way before, you understand the nuts and bolts. You understand what's under the hood, what's actually happening, and I think that's really important. You want a sneak peek of the server.js? Yes. So exclamation point GitHub Mingy, and you can see that server.js file right out there on my GitHub already. And it's in the repo called full stack template out there on my GitHub. Exclamation point GitHub and full stack template. That's where you can find that. We get better as we are more seasoned. Indeed. Yes. Oh, and Rascal just linked directly to it. Thank you, Rascal. Okay. So before we push to Heroku, we need to do a little bit of housekeeping. So let's think about what we're doing, right? We're pushing our files up to Heroku, and what Heroku is going to do is it's going to read through those files and essentially do the same things we were doing locally here, except it's going to do it out there on, in server land. So thinking about some of the connections that we made earlier, what's something that Heroku is going to need in order to establish the connections that it needs in order to access all the data and things that our server is going to need to communicate? That was a really weird way to ask that question, but I'm trying not to give away the answer. Yeah, and Hazel already has the answer. So, right, exactly. Heroku is going to need to be able to access our DB string. Now, how do we push to Heroku? Well, we push using git commands on the command line, right? We push using git commands on the command line. So, what's going to happen if I have my environment variables in my git ignore file? What's going to happen? Yeah. Well, my server won't be able to read that connection string, right? Because it won't have the appropriate components that it needs to connect to the database. So, when we're pushing up to GitHub, we obviously want to exclude the environment variables and those types of things. Error message. When we're pushing to GitHub specifically, we do want to exclude those types of things. However, when we're actually pushing to Heroku, you're going to want to essentially make that environment variable visible and make sure that it does get pushed up to Heroku so that it can be read. As far as I know, that's the best way to do it. However, if anybody has a better way where I shouldn't be doing that, just as far as I know, it needs this environment, it needs this .env file in order to access the variables, for Heroku to access the variables that it actually needs to make that database connection. So that's easy. It's an easy fix. We can just take that .env out of there, right? Before we push up to Heroku. So that way it does get included in the push. So just don't forget to do that, because I think I did when I was deploying this earlier today, when I was deploying my other version earlier today, and I was like, well, why is this erroring out? Why isn't this working? Well, yeah, because it can't connect. It doesn't have the variables it needs. So yeah, I had to take that out of my git ignore. You still don't want to push it to GitHub though. Oh, okay. So that's good to know, Rascal. So Heroku in their settings has a section called config vars, where you can input your environment variables there as well. So yeah, that's another option. If you don't push them up here, you can input them manually in Heroku. Yeah. Okay. And I don't believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I can leave the node modules themselves. Can I leave the node modules themselves in the .env file? I genuinely don't remember, so that's a genuine question. Or do I need to, do I need to take the node modules out of the git ignore? I could just look at my own project, but I'm too lazy, so I'm asking you all. Hazel, is that a yeah for the leave them in or yeah for take them out? I can leave them in. Okay. All right. Yeah, they go there. Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I was wanting to make sure. All right, cool. So now we're ready to push to Heroku. So the first thing we need to do is actually log into Heroku so we can actually start using some Heroku commands. So this is also assuming that you do have the Heroku command line interface installed. So let's just take a quick pause, and if you don't have the Heroku command line interface, it's pretty easy to install. Heroku CLI. It's right here. I will give you a link. You can install it. You're going to need this. So I've pasted you a link right there. Install that. You can install it, Windows, Mac, whatever you have. There's, the installers are right down here on the page. One for Mac and one for Windows. So install that so you can actually use these Heroku commands within the command line. Yeah, Jack Tree, just take out the .env file from your git ignore. Okay. Raccoon, do you have the Heroku command line interface installed? Because we're gonna log in just a second, and I'll show you what that looks like. So install this if you don't have it already, and we can start using these Heroku commands. Oh, no worries, Jack Tree. That's no problem at all. So what are we putting in the console? Nothing yet. Don't panic. It's all good. We've already created our Git repo. I'm going to get rid of this as well. Sorry. We've already created our Git repo, but now we actually have to start configuring things so that we can push to Heroku. So previously we've been pushing to GitHub, right? That's a different location. Now we're actually going to be pushing up to Heroku, which is where we're going to host this stuff. Okay, so we're going to follow the steps that I have listed right here in the instructions. So the first thing we're going to type is Heroku login. Okay? Type that. And if you already have a Heroku account and you have the Heroku command line interface installed, you should get a prompt asking you to log in. So I'm going to log in. And yep. All right, there we go. I'm going to move this off the screen for a second so I can log in. And oh, I guess it didn't show anything incriminating. So I just clicked log in and it logged me in. It may ask for credentials. I just logged in earlier today, so it probably remembers me. But yeah, so I just said I'm logged in now. Josue, there is really nothing. It's just straight up HTML. You can go to you can see, I did push it up to GitHub, so you can just grab it from there if you want. It's just nonsense text. It's just filler. Just something to display on the screen. So you can put whatever you want in there. Slap a couple H2s on there and say something funny. There's nothing important in the index.ejs. Okay, so you can see that after I used Heroku, I think I did. Did I not? Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Yeah, this is uncommitted. I apologize for that. So let me just do that really quickly. My bad. I was sure I pushed and then I didn't. So apologies. I will push this up to GitHub and you will have everything, the EJS and all the recent changes that we've made. So last commit was add middleware. Okay. Yeah. Git add and git commit -m added index and folder structure. And I do need to add my .env file back just for a second. So to my git ignore, I'm going to add .env back just to push up to GitHub. Got to remember where we're pushing here. All right, save. Okay, and added index and folder structure. Perfect. And go back here. And I think that's good. I think we can commit that. Yeah. All right, we'll assume that's fine. And git push. There we go. Remember git ignore. Thank you, Josue. Yes, I did this time. I remembered. I got that. Yeah, I did. Thanks for all the reminders. I updated the .env. Now I'm going to change it back. All right. Goodbye. Okay, now we're ready to push to Heroku. Should be good to go. Freddy Gamer, welcome. This is JavaScript with some CSS, HTML, Express, and Node. We are killing it. It doesn't give you a GitHub login. It shouldn't give you a GitHub login. It should give you a Heroku login. We're not logging into GitHub here. We're logging into Heroku itself. Yeah, so when we're pushing up to Heroku, just take out, whoop, you just saw my password there real quick, but that's all right. Just take out your .env from your git ignore file. So it should only have node modules in it. All right, now finally, I think we're actually ready to try push. So I logged in to Heroku already. I'm gonna move my terminal up here a little bit. And the next command I'm gonna do is, so Raccoon, did you already have a Heroku account? Like not GitHub, but Heroku. Have you ever pushed anything to Heroku before? Yeah, green scars. Don't worry, I'm gonna change the password. I've changed it once already on stream, so I'm keeping people guessing. And it's just sample data on there anyway, but I'm gonna change it again. Thanks for looking out for me though. Appreciate it. Yeah, Triz, I'm gonna be changing it after the stream. Yeah, Raccoon, I think I used, I don't remember how I created my account. I don't know that I used GitHub. I may have used like, I think I may have just used like Google login, but I know I'd set up like 2-factor authentication. So it does ask me for that occasionally. Okay, so we did our Heroku login. The next command is Heroku create. Now, if you would like to, you can specify a name for your Heroku deployment. However, if you don't specify a name, it will pick one for you, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when we're doing these sorts of like test templates and that kind of thing. You can just have it pick a name for you, which is going to guaranteed to be unique. Sometimes it can be hard to pick a name that somebody else hasn't already chosen. So I actually just kind of like just using Heroku create and have it just pick a name for me that you can, I think you can change it later. I don't know for sure, but just for test apps like this, you might as well just have it pick a name for you. Yeah. So Heroku create is the next command. Oh, and sorry, last thing. When you're doing this deployment, you're going to want to make sure that you are not currently residing, that you aren't currently clicked into like your main.js or your style.js or one of these subfolders. You're going to want to make sure that you are in your like root sort of directory, that you're either in maybe your server.js file or one of these sort of root files that are sitting at the root. So otherwise it might give you funny errors, but we'll just try it and we'll see what we get. Heroku create. It says creating app, and it gives it a name, and it gives it a Git repository, and it gives it a URL as well. Josue, no, you need the database, your Heroku app needs that database string to connect to the database. It's going to use that. So what you need to do is just remove .env from your git ignore. Okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to say echo. I'm just going to copy and paste this, otherwise I will type it wrong. We're going to do an echo and put it into a proc file. And notice what it did. It created a proc file for us, and it put it in our little list of files here. It put it at the root, and if we click into that, it just literally just says web node server.js. It's just basically telling Heroku how to launch our app. What are we using? What tool are we using to deploy our app? And in our case, we're using Node, but not everybody might be using Node. Some people might be using something different. Python, or I don't know, some other app deployment code. In our case, we're using Node, but this is just us, so that's why that option is there. All right, so that's our proc file. Let's go back to the instructions and see what we do next. So the next thing we do is just a very standard git and commit, and then a push. But instead of pushing to GitHub, right, instead of just doing git push, look what we're doing. We're pushing to Heroku itself. So we've set up our app. We've set up our destination, just like we would set up a GitHub repository. And we are pushing directly to that repository. So let's try it out. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to do a git add. And in this case, remember, we do want to push that .env file. So git add, git commit, I'm going to say initial deploy. All right. And we can see that it picked up the proc file. And we're going to do git push Heroku main. Okay, so it's doing the deployment now, and you can see versus a GitHub deployment, like there's a lot more going on here, right? Because it's actually setting it up to run the stuff that we're pushing up to it. All right, it says build succeeded, cool beans. Yeah, Nacho Kai, that's a great way to put it. So Heroku will have that database string, but it will only serve the files that we have placed in that public folder because they're public. So that's the only thing it's going to serve up to the public is what's in that public folder. Yeah. Good way to put it. Okay. So it said the deployment is done. Let's see how we can test it out. So up here in the deployment code, it gives us the link to our deployment. Oh, and you know what? I realized I missed something. This is not this. So the deployment worked, but we are missing something. A million channel points if anybody can guess what it is. No, not really, but if you can guess what we missed, that's okay. We're just going to redeploy. Now that we have it set up, we can redeploy as many times as we want, and it's super easy. So can anybody think what'll happen? What'll happen if I visit this link right now? What do you, any bets? If I visit the link that we just created, will I see my index.ejs? Will it serve up my index.ejs? Does my server know that when somebody visits the homepage that that's what it should do? Yeah, right. I don't have a route. I don't have, my server is not listening for that. It's not listening for someone to visit the homepage and then say, all right, well, when somebody visits the homepage, I need to serve up this index.ejs. So we need to add something additional to our server in order for it to serve up this index.ejs that we created. Yeah, forgot the GET request. Exactly. Yes, y'all are so smart. But now that we've created our deployment, it's super easy to redeploy. So now we've established the connection. We can just like we would push to GitHub, we can just roll it back out again. It's no big deal at all. So this will help us practice redeploying also. There is no Git, indeed. The reminds me of like the Matrix. There is no spoon, indeed. In this case, there is no Git. Okay, so in order to serve up our index.ejs, we need to go back to our server.js. Yeah, there's tons of vulnerabilities out there. Yeah, absolutely, Trizzy. And that's actually not something that we've really covered in our course yet, as far as like, vulnerabilities and keeping things protected. We're really focusing on like structure now, but I totally see your point that yes, security is a major component of when you're building apps, and that's something we're going to need to get to and start covering at some point. Yeah. Okay, so let's head on back to our server.js, and we're going to fix this. So right now we really just have our connection, we have some middleware, and we have our port set up. But what we need to do is we actually need to tell our server to serve something up, right? That's what it does. It's a server. It serves things. So we need to tell it to we need to tell it to actually serve up that index.ejs page. Chanpo, do you have the Heroku command line interface installed? Did it let you log into Heroku and do all those things when you typed like Heroku login? Did you log into Heroku and all that stuff? But yeah, let's figure out how to serve up our index.ejs. All right, I'm going back to my notes here. Just say I can't type this stuff from memory, and you shouldn't either. Don't expect to memorize this stuff. That's why we're building a template, right? You want to build a template that's going to allow you to just take this every single time and build on top of it. So if I want to listen for a particular URL to be passed into my server and then return something to another location, what method would I use? What express method would I use? I want my server to share something with the requester. What CRUD method would I use? Get. Yeah, indeed, exactly. We get it. Yes. Jack Tree, you can put your .env back in your git ignore, but you're gonna have to take it back out again when we push back to Heroku. So it's up to you. You can put it back now and push to GitHub, or you just be mindful of where you're putting it. All right. So we're gonna do an app.get, And what we want to listen for is just if somebody visits the home page, we want to serve up that EJS file that we created. So how do I listen for somebody to visit the home page? What do I put in here as my URL path, as my URL path? What do I put in there? Yeah, exactly. /. Yep. Okay. And we're going to get a little incongruous here. And we're going to, instead of using a traditional sort of like promise syntax like we did for the connection, we're going to use an asynchronous function just to be a little fancy here. So if I want to start my asynchronous function, I can use the keyword of async. And then what are the two parameters that I need inside of my GET request? What are the two parameters that I need really inside of any CRUD function? I'm going to ask this question every single time, so you better get used to it. Every single stream, I'm going to ask the question. Yeah, rec and res, right? And what do those stand for? What do they stand for? If you were to type them out, I know typing extra characters, it takes so much more work. Yes. Request and response. Yes, exactly. And really, they could be anything that you want, but it needs to be something that is, the traditional parameters are request and response. Yeah. Because it's showing it's taking in a request that we're getting from an outside source and it's sending something back as a response, right? Yes. So this is a function and it is a arrow function. So we're going to use arrow syntax here. And inside of our arrow function, we're going to use a try catch block. And so what that's going to do is it's literally going to try to do something. And if it doesn't work, it's going to catch the error and display that error message. Okay, so inside of my try block, oh, thank you for the hydrate. Kapow, indeed. Okay, so inside of my try block, essentially what I want to say is, hey server, when somebody reaches the home page, why don't you send back that lovely index.ejs file that I put together? So if I want it to send that file back as a response, and I want it to, I want it to render that EJS, what might I say here inside of my try block? Remember, Express is very literal. What do I say if I want it to send that back as a response and render it as EJS? Yeah. I see one right answer there. Anybody want to be the tiebreaker? Good guesses so far. This is kind of a hard one, so because we haven't done a lot with index study, we haven't done a lot with EJS yet. So response send file. Yeah, okay. So I see a couple right answers. Great, awesome, yes. Y'all got it. Okay, so response, right? Because it's a response. Duh. Cool. It's a response. We're sending it back. We get a request. We send back a response, right? And what I want to do specifically is render that file. Because it's EJS, it needs to be rendered rather than just sent. So at least that's my understanding. So we're going to render that EJS, and that should display it properly in the browser, right? So when somebody visits the home page, and by default, they're going to be visiting the root, which just is signified by this / there. When that happens, this function will run. The response will be to render the index.ejs file and display it to the user. If that does not work for some reason, we're going to send back an error message. Oh, you've been working in React on a separate server. Yeah. We're going to get to React here in just a little bit. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Yeah. So in this error block down here, we could really put a lot of things, but I'm going to send back a proper, like actual proper error message. Response status. We're going to send back a status of 500. I don't remember what that is. I looked it up at one point and it immediately left my brain. That's not the kind of thing I remember. In this case, then we can just send that back. We can send a response with a status 500 and basically just display whatever error message gets shown. So message is just going to be error message. And that will literally display whatever error comes up. Yeah. So the try catch is going to handle this in the appropriate way. And if there's a problem, it'll just send back a status of 500 and display the error message for us. So not too difficult there. Now our server, when somebody visits the homepage of our deployment, our server will know exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this up to Heroku. Now that we should have an appropriate endpoint for our homepage, I'm going to push this up to Heroku. I'm going to test and make sure it works. And then I'm going to push it to GitHub as the complete file. So along with the instructions and everything. All right, so we want to redeploy to Heroku now. So essentially what I need to do is a classic Git sequence. So I need to do git add, because remember, even though we're pushing to a different location, we still need to do a commit to our local repo and then push it up to Heroku. So git add, git commit -m added endpoint in server JS. Okay. And okay, I think that should be fine. Oh, I have 3 M's in the word commit. I thought that looked weird. Hang on. There. Commit, the word commit does not have 3 M's. All right. Now we can do git push Heroku main, and that should redeploy for us. And it's going to do a lot of fancy things. Yeah, Hazel, React's making all the front end stuff much easier. That's what I've heard. I'm excited to get into it. We just haven't got there yet in class, so I don't want to get in my streams. I do a lot of things, but I don't want to get ahead. You know, put the cart before the horse as far as the class goes. Just because Leon does such a great job of like introducing things for the first time, and I don't want to accidentally ruin that in some way. So I'm more about the reinforcement of the concepts. And kind of finding little tangents to go off on. So, all right, so we've redeployed. Now let's see if we can get something valid back from our link. So I'm going to copy this. I'm copying this this link to the actual app. So let's go to the browser and let's see what we get. All right, that's not what I wanted. Where is my, there we go. That's the one. Okay. Hey, look at what we got. What is that? That's our index.ejs file, isn't it? Yeah. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that everything is working properly. Our index.ejs displayed. Unfortunately, I don't see any Comic Sans here, and I am very disappointed. I don't know why that didn't work. But the actual EJS is displaying, however, Comic Sans is not. Darn it. All right, so at least this is working to this extent, even though we didn't get our beautiful Comic Sans. So I'm going to go ahead and push this to GitHub. Yeah. I wonder. I'm gonna check my index.ejs here and see. I think maybe it has to do with, I'm going to try something here. I'm just going to mess around. I'm going to take away that public designator on the folder there. And take away this here. I don't know if this is going to work, so don't follow me just yet. And I'm just going to do a redeployment real quick. That's everyone's homework. Get Comic Sans working. Hey, Denza, welcome. Good to see you. All right, let's just try a redeployment real quick. I want my Comic Sans, dang it. Give me Comic Sans. All right, git commit. Just testing. Oh, I need a message there. Just testing. All right. And make sure I get this right. Git push Heroku main. Okay, let's try this again. Come on, baby. Yeah, Raccoon, you did include your .env file in the push up to Heroku, right? Yes. Chris, give meme font, please. Indeed. Yes. Okay. See if I can open the right browser window again. All right, let's try it. Let's reload this and see. No! I want my Comic Sans! Oh, no. Oh, Heroku open? Oh, cool. We can try that, yeah. Yeah, I don't know all the commands yet. It's working now. Okay, that's good. I'm glad it's working for you there. Hey, Champo, you got it. That's awesome. Way to go. Oh, Sakalo, I'm jealous. You got it working with Comic Sans? Oh, man, I'm sure I have a little mistake somewhere. I don't know. If anybody spots anything, let me know. So I'm going to do let's see, real quick before, when you got yours working with your Comic Sans, how did you link to your style sheet? Did you link like this? Sakalo? Yeah, I might not have Comic Sans installed. That's a good point, Rascal, because this is a brand new machine, so I really don't have it. I'm running pretty lean as far as installations. I don't even have Word. I don't even have Microsoft Word, so I probably don't have the appropriate font files. Yeah, that's a good point. Dang it! I wanted Comic Sans. Oh well. So you might have to mess with the links to make sure you get it in the appropriate folders, but who uses Word? So Frododo, remember that if you're pushing to GitHub now, you have to change your git ignore. You have to change your git ignore and add your .env file back, and then save it and commit to your local repository with that excluded, and then push. It's a bit of a thing. So you can host a whole app on Heroku. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, you can host a whole app on Heroku. I haven't messed around with Heroku too much versus like Netlify. But yeah, I mean, in this case anyway, it is allowing us to host, oh yeah, and Hazel says, I built a whole digital content store on there. It seems really full featured, just like Netlify. I'm not sure about the pros and cons of Netlify versus Heroku, but we've mostly just used Heroku as like a server host for now. So, all right, so I saved my git ignore, and so now I'm just going to go ahead and push back up to GitHub. The only thing I'm not entirely sure is working. Actually, hang on one more time. We're going to do one more deployment here. I'm going to choose a different font family. We're going to do something obvious like Bookman old style or something. Come on. We'll do Impact. That's a pretty obvious one. All right. Git add. And actually, I need to take this out again. Nope. That's all right. I'm going to change it later. All right, node modules. Okay, that's saved. All right, git add, commit. Messing with fonts. All right, and git push Heroku main. Oh, Comic Sans MS. Oh, okay, that might do it. Yeah, well, I already changed it to impact, so I can always change it back though. Okay, it wants me to upgrade. I'm not going to do that. And control click. There we go. Hey, there it is. That worked. Yeah. Okay, so that's definitely impact. Yeah, okay, Comic Sans MS. All right. Well, we'll leave it as impact for now, but it can be that can be your homework is to change it to Comic Sans and see if you can get a deployment going. Somebody else already did, so I know it works. Yeah. Dang it, Microsoft. Why you got to make it hard for me to find my Comic Sans? Okay, let's push to GitHub. I keep clicking on that accidentally. Doesn't matter anyway. It's going to be changed in 10 minutes. All right, so got my .env file added back. I'm going to do git add. I'm going to git commit m. There's project. Okay. And now this time, instead of doing git push Heroku main, I'm just going to do a straight git push. So no changes, just git push. There we go. And this time, by just saying git push, now we're going back to GitHub. So we're controlling the place where we're pushing this data. We always push to our local repository, but we're controlling the end result of where that data ends up. So now if we go back to my GitHub, we should have the full deal. Yes. So, yep. And messing with fonts, perfect. Yeah, so that looks about right. Yeah, for Dodo, okay. And that may be because of like the way that we're kind of alternating back and forth between GitHub and Heroku. So you may just have to manually delete the file, your .env file. Yeah. If we redo the Heroku push, do we just skip the create part? Yep. So just like you would do with GitHub. So think about how you do GitHub. When you do GitHub, do you create a new repo every single time you push? No, right? Each time you push, you just do git add, git commit, git push, right? And it's the same thing here. You can just do git add, git commit, and Heroku push. So same process. Do we need an updated link to the GitHub page? No, you should just be able to visit the same link. So I'll paste it again though for you. Oop, I just got a text message. There you go. So it's there. Oh, and Rascal just gave you a command line code there to get rid of your .env if you want to get rid of the cached file. Yeah. But if you did accidentally push it and you're worried about that, like I did show you earlier how you can easily change your password. Just remember then to update it in your code so that your app can still log in, so that your server can still log into Mongo. Yeah. Okay. So everything should be out there on GitHub. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And hopefully you can use this template to, if this full stack stuff kind of seemed a little bit impenetrable before, hopefully you can use this template now to help you start building some of this stuff out a little bit. Again, if you're not sure what to do from here, if you're not sure, okay, wait, I have all this stuff now, what the flip do I do? How do I add things? How do I get user inputs? How do I add data to a database? I don't know how to do any of this. Well, you were in luck. I have several streams on that. So just look at my Twitch channel and look at my field guide to aliens. Look at my 6-hour CRUD tutorial. Look at my database builder from last week. Let's see. I'm going to, here, let me just, I think I can, well, if I go to my Twitch homepage now, it's going to like do like a picture-in-picture type nonsense thing. Definitely just go back to my Twitch channel, look back through some of my past videos and find things that might look interesting that may help you with your projects. Okay? So any last questions before we go? And it seems, so we're at 10:12 now, so it seems I'm physically incapable of doing a stream that is under 3 hours. I did have one like a couple weeks ago, but that was the first one I've ever had that was under 3 hours. I thought, oh, tonight, I was like, oh, this one's going to be short tonight. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Deb Puddle. I had fun. This one was fun tonight. I enjoyed this. I always enjoy it, but some I enjoy more than others. Triz, you can see my Twitch schedule on my Twitch homepage. Click on the schedule tab and you will see that I do have another stream this Sunday. I'm actually not sure if we're having office hours this Sunday, but if we do have office hours, my stream this Sunday will be right after office hours. If we don't, then it will be at 3 o'clock Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So 4 hours earlier than tonight's stream, and I've done that to make it a little easier for overseas folks to tune in. Yeah. Oh, bad love, I'm sorry. I'm going to sneeze, hang on. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Normally I mute, but I knew I wasn't going to get to it in time. Yeah, I do have the Twitch schedule and it is accurate. And also too, if you would like to catch me and if you want to see more about the stream topics before I go live, so if you want to know what I'm going to be streaming about to decide whether you want to tune in, I always announce that on Twitter, always before my stream, earlier in the day. I will post on Twitter. So !Twitter, follow me on Twitter if you want to learn more about any schedule changes or my stream topics or anything like that. I promise I don't spam you. I post very little outside of the actual schedule announcements or topic announcements. So !Twitter. Oh, Blank Weeks, thank you. I don't know about Leak Code Goddess, but no, I actually really haven't done much Leak Code at all. I do mostly independent projects, but I'm excited to get into Leak Code. Yeah. What is my ranking on Leak Code? I don't have a ranking. I actually haven't done Leak Code. Like I say, I do independent projects right now. I am planning on getting into Leak Code at some point. Just haven't yet, but believe me, I'm sure we'll be doing some Leak Code streams once we get there. So feel free to tune in the future. All right, let's find someone to raid, shall we? Shall we find a raid? Any suggestions? While I get it pulled up here. Thank you for the follow, No Blank Weeks. Okay, 2 seconds. I'm getting the raid screen pulled up. Okay, let's see who we can raid. Epic Cat, okay. They're playing Dead by Daylight. We got Polarin. We got Midnight Simon. We got Coder Girl Chan. Any suggestions? Otherwise, I might just pick well, I might just pick Epic Cat since they're in 100 devs. Yeah, they've only got 7 viewers right now, so how about, I love making somebody's day who only has a few viewers, and then we go and we raid them, and they get excited. So let's do Epic Cat, 7 viewers. Let's make that, let's multiply that by a few times. So, all right, starting the raid. Takes a few seconds to get going. I hope everybody has an excellent evening, and I will see you all again on Sunday. All right, rock and roll. See you later.